I think what would be helpful is from a community, like, communication, feedback standpoint, like, what is the standard we wanna set here?
100%.
That's what I wanna know.
Any
Like, what should we be
meeting, any
expecting?
communication, anything should be done in front of people. Should be official city business, the community should know.
Wrightstown is,
There's
yeah, Wrightstown is very community-based. You project it everywhere, families, community. Yeah, it's us.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
You have 4 questions that you thought were very relevant, you
Oh.
wanted to get to. My question would be, do we wanna maybe ask people to tell us if they even live in this community?
Well,
Nearby.
I mean,
But we do. The
Yeah.
Fox Cities, Green Bay, this is our community.
Brown County.
I live 6 miles away. I don't care.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah,
if people
no.
are actually from
This is
Wrightstown.
Wisconsin. People from Wisconsin should be here.
yeah, no, and I think anyone, you know, when we're talking about transparency and feedback to the public, you know, that's why, I mean, obviously that's why we're here, and that's why we are asking for, you know, if you wanna stay informed, like, maybe we get everyone's emails too, and as soon as we have new information, we email you out, you know, whatever that information might be, regardless of where you live, you
Right.
know, and that's fine. But, you know, I think from an elected official standpoint, you know, it does, you know, you wanna know who your constituents are, okay, versus who aren't your constituents. But it doesn't mean just because you don't live in the village that you shouldn't know what's going on. But yeah, and I'm, like, this is informal, like, we're not giving a presentation, we're listening to you here. And someone wrote down these questions, and I just thought we could talk about them. Like, the first question is, will this data center be a closed loop cooling system? My answer to that is, we have no idea, because while it's known that Cloverleaf, who was the initial developer in Port Washington, is in the area, Cloverleaf has expressed some interest. I think it was Cloverleaf who was in Greenleaf, I'm not 100% on that.
That's
But-
true.
But they weren't giving, no idea as to any other details. So that tells me, from someone who's done these things before, that they're not even at a point where they could be making a proposal to move forward.
Why was there something in the paper then? Why were people addressed and they sent over like the Garrett's land and stuff like that? So how did that all happen?
My guess is they're in the community talking to landowners, okay? But the contact they've had with the village is minimal, other than
Oh, minimum.
we're here, yeah, minimal, you
Okay.
know.
So there
we're-
is.
We're here, of course. I mean, anyone who's looking to come in a community is gonna reach out to the village. And so, and it's basically, we're here, what's your zoning, you know, that kind of thing, and here's our zoning code, all right. But as
All
far
right,
as
but
closed
scary.
loop, I'm sorry?
That's just, that they were all contacted and you were giving out information and stuff and the village didn't know that, the people.
So you would think that if a business contacts village staff every time
This
that-
isn't just a business. This is
Okay.
so much more.
Sure.
If you ask the village staff and they tell you no, and they had been contacted, that probably would be a huge issue.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because I know how I felt about the Greenleaf site. Some information has come to light that as any issue, you learn more, right? But I guess I'm kind of, what I'm struggling with when we ask you direct questions, and I know everyone has questions and you're trying to answer. But what I'm struggling with my business background is whenever any company, be it Walmart, I'm saying like a big box store, we really wanna know if that was coming to the village, because we don't wanna be left with them if they leave in a year, because they don't have a business, right? But it could also be a mom and pop bakery opening up. It doesn't matter what, if I'm wrong, please whatever possible business venue it might be, they have to contact the local community, find out what zoning is, population, right? Age group, the demographics of that population. I'm concerned about my getting caught up in the weeds about what's just standard business practice that is very different from contacting an official and talking about a specific client. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Am I getting caught up in the weeds with all of those
Well-
kinds of things that are just basic business? So I don't focus on that, focus on what the real issues are.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think anyone I've heard speak is wrong so
No, I
far.
don't think anybody is. I'm just
Uh,
trying to get my mind on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, any developer, it doesn't matter if it's a data center or multifamily residential or commercial or whatever, is gonna initially make some outreach to just try to get some answers about the municipality, about their zoning code, whatever that might be. Generally speaking, across the board, that's not something that, goes to a public meeting like a village board meeting.
Right.
But
that's what I'm
then-
getting at.
And you make a good point, ma'am, like, well, a data center these days is very controversial,
Oh
so
my gosh.
maybe it should,
It's huge.
But normal operating procedure is then, talk to any municipal official around the state where there's development going on. You get these calls regularly, okay? And most of them, by far most of them, you don't hear from again.
That's what I'm.
And that's
getting
it.
at, yeah.
And so you do also have to weigh the other side, like if, a Walmart calls and they're just kicking the tires, you don't wanna put that on agenda and get people thinking that there's a Walmart coming to come, when you may never hear from them again, okay?
I know, but it's just paperwork to type it in, boom, boom, boom. Walmart called us, just so
Right.
you know, all people. It'd be
Right.
so considerate
Yeah,
for the village, for the people, for people like the lady who was out on you or wherever that is, that they sold all the land. I understand the business part, I don't care about all that. But the lady then who wasn't paying attention and still has her house out there and everybody built around her and she's going, well, I'm sure she was approached to sell.
yeah.
But, now she's like,
But generally,
it's just too much.
at a next, if a developer then actually is thinking they are serious and would move forward, then they would come with, an application for whatever permit, or a site plan, or a rezone, or whatever that might be. And then that's where the public process usually starts, okay? Here, we have that initial outreach again, we have no idea if this thing is actually gonna go anywhere, or if they're serious. But the rumors got out, people came to the village board, came to the board and said, okay, let's start earlier than we normally would, and let's get the community involved here. And that's why we're here, so.
I think that in itself upsets people. I mean, the fact that you're starting, this came out of nowhere. I mean, probably the majority of the people in this village didn't even know anything was going on until they read it in the newspaper and heard it on TV. Me being one of them.
Yeah,
I mean, we knew about Greenleaf over here and it got turned down there.
It didn't get really
But
turned
this
down.
came out of absolutely nowhere. And for the village to make the statement that they do absolutely nothing about it. I mean, earlier you said, well, we're gonna gather this information, and then, we're gonna let the village know, and then they'll, the data center will determine whether they wanna move forward or not.
well, if they wanna try to.
That statement in itself means there's been information passed previous.
Yeah, other
I
than,
mean, that statement, when you said it, I went, what?
yeah, I mean, other than they're in the area and they're interested, that's all I mean.
But,
Okay.
I mean,
Whether or not they're ever gonna be in a position to actually come forward with a proposal, I don't know. That's why, like this first question about, is it gonna be a closed loop system? You already know what the answer is, because we don't know, we don't have any information. So, if this developer or any other would give more information or say, okay, look, we think we'd like to try to move forward here, you know, that's when we'd be able to get more information from them and then pass it along.
I think people are just skeptical, myself
Yeah,
included,
I know.
because it came out of absolutely nowhere. And the village is saying, we have no information, but, oh, we're gonna put together meetings and have this stuff. It's like, wait a minute, if you have no information,
Well, the meetings, these meetings are, you know, and I apologize that you know, if anyone thought that this was the village providing information to you, we're trying to get information from the community so that we're prepared if a data center developer says we wanna go forward, we know what the community standards are
So
here.
I
you
personally-
you are providing information, you have a lawyer here, you have an engineer here, you have an attorney here.
I mean, we can
So you
provide
are.
general information,
So you are
but
providing
not about
information.
this, like, what could happen here.
No.
What are your other questions that were asked?
So again, and most of the answers are gonna be the same. How many acres will it cover? What will the total project cost? What will be the benefits to the community? All of this stuff, you know, it's too early to tell. Because until Cloverleaf or any other developer will say, okay, we're serious, okay? We would like to try to get this done in Wrightstown, okay? That's when we could start answering those questions, because the first questions I would ask is what the questions I've been given from the village. Okay, well, is this a closed loop system? Yes or no? Okay, if it's yes, okay, if it's no, well, tell me more about what the system is then.
Could
You
you
know, so-
explain closed loop? Just
Closed loop system is what the data center in Mount Pleasant has, and that data center is, their first phase is running, okay? And so they use a closed loop system, which is different than the prior generations of data centers that use evaporative cooling, which used a ton of water, okay? So I was representing Mount Pleasant back when Microsoft first called. Mount Pleasant is a village in Racine County. They get their water from the city of Racine. Okay, so Mount Pleasant does not have their own water utility. Okay. And when this all happened and Microsoft called, everyone assumed this was gonna be a huge, huge water user. And actually, the city of Racine Water Utility, the mayor of the city of Racine, was optimistic about the revenue for the sale of water from their utility. And so, once we started down the path, now, you guys may or may not know, but the Microsoft development down there is going in on land that was set aside for Foxconn. Foxconn built where they built, they take up about 1,000 acres, but there's about 2,000 acres left. And when Foxconn got approved, Great Lakes Compact approved a daily water use of what, 8 million gallons a day? Oh, 7 million gallons a day. That's what was approved for that site. Well, Foxconn, they only built out a portion of what they originally claimed they were gonna do. But you still have permission to use 7 million gallons of water today, and Foxconn uses just a tiny sliver of it. And so when Microsoft came, everyone assumed they came because, oh, we have all this water capacity that was approved. And the city of Racine was, I don't wanna speak for them, but I think they were a little excited about being able to sell that water to a user. And then Microsoft gave their actual numbers, and City of Racine was disappointed. But I think people who care about water are happy, because this closed loop system doesn't use as much as the evaporative cooling. Because they're saying they're gonna use about 2.4 million gallons a year. So that's what I know about closed loop systems, is that they seem to use less water. However, what do they put in that closed loop system? Obviously, they fill it with water, but there's also chemicals in there. You know, chemicals that personally I would not want, you know, to contaminate my water that I use to drink from my tap.
Interesting.
So,
Well, and the secondary issue too is all the hidden costs. I mean, we talk about the water usage, we talk about the energy usage, we don't talk about the transmission and build-up costs.
right,
So I know, like, We Energies estimates 63 million by 2027 to existing customers for transmission build-out for the data centers. Not that they're buying it, where's their estimate for it? So,
Yeah.
It still costs us more for them to show up.
yeah, and my opinion is that the data center, should be on the hook for any costs, whether it's their, directly attributed to them, or what you just said.
Yeah.
Nothing should be passed on to normal people who live, ratepayers in the area.
Hasn't Wisconsin
PSC just
made a
did that.
ruling about that with
PSC just
with
did that.
that just came out, right?
Well,
Where they
it-
have to take all the burden.
It's a
No,
law.
I'm just saying
No,
it's a
no,
law.
and I noticed, so that's clarifying that they have to pay for all their energy usage, but the transmission cost to build out and maintain the lines going to the data centers aren't included in that.
But that can be included in a negotiation, can't
It's
it?
Well, that's my point.
Yeah,
I
it can
said,
be, and it's being discussed, but that's not confirmed yet.
Okay,
And We
thank
Energy
you.
says it could be 63 million by 2027 and up to 100 million for existing customers by 2028. So whether or not they make the agreement, that's not there yet, so.
but my point is,
This-
regardless if they make the agreement with the power provider, the municipality
Yes.
can
Yeah, they
Yeah, yeah.
require that.
Yeah, and Wisconsin already has a law, at least from a tax perspective, that they're all tax exempt with the data center for purchasing from a sales tax perspective. So, yes, yeah, thank you, so.
For their-
But not property.
Yeah, well, that's a different thing where, like, I know, was it here, the Port Washington one pays about a 17th of their property taxes for the next 20 years because of the deal.
If they're in the kitchen, which is something that I don't think we are at all remotely interested in.
Correct,
Doing.
but it's all possibilities, that's the unfortunate,
Right.
side.
This lady had her hand.
Yeah, sorry.
So so you had talked about this water evaporation and the chemicals, and you said that you would not wanna live around there, because this does all
No, I
evaporate.
didn't say I didn't wanna live around there, I said, I don't want that in my drinking water.
Oh, in your drinking water, but also this evaporates, so correct, this water,
Ideally, in a closed loop, it
Well, no.
wouldn't evaporate.
it wouldn't?
Ideally.
Ideally, okay.
Ideally.
Okay.
Now, so this is a good point, and I'm glad you brought this up, because, just like, your cooling system in your car doesn't evaporate, right, the coolant, it stays in there. Same with a closed loop system, it doesn't evaporate, but what if it leaks? What if they do need to replace it at some point, and I'm told that they don't need to, I'm told if these things run the way they're supposed to run, they don't need to replace it, just like how often do you replace the coolant in your car? Almost not. I don't know, I can't think of the time I did that.
What
I don't
about
know
the
what
noise?
What's that?
You got it in your car, you have an engine cooling it,
Yes.
fan running it. Now you have to have generators and diesel generators to cool that water, noise.
Exhaust.
Well, we'll get to that, but let's talk about
Close
water.
door open.
Yeah, so, my point is, okay, but what if the system malfunctions, and what if there are leaks and things like that? So, my idea is, okay, you need to have a system where even if it leaks, or even if you need to drain this closed loop thing, it's not going back into the wastewater utility. Like, you have to truck that out and get it remediated just like any contaminant.
But things will always leak first before anybody's aware of it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
Newer
saying, they need to have a
leaks.
built-in system.
Exactly, but you have you have 100 homes around this thing, you
Right.
have businesses around this thing, you have children, you have people.
Yeah, you're right, and we don't want that, so, yes, ma'am.
So with the closed loop, if you want an analysis done by a professional here in Wisconsin, this speaks to it, it speaks to Port Washington. With the closed loop, there's the direct, which is the system on the site, but there's the indirect, and that's the water that it takes at the power plant. And also to run this, it does take 3 times more energy. And when we're talking about energy, we are talking about the majority of that being fossil fuels, which is methane gas. So there's a lot to consider, but I would really encourage you, Clean Wisconsin has put a lot of time into this. So, I have 2 copies, that's all I have with me. But I would just say, just dig deep and really lean on those experts that know about this, because they're working really hard to give us accurate information.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, like, the actual site itself, if they're using a closed loop system, I mean, I think the water usage we're talking about is sinks, toilets, sprinkler, sprinkler, fire, irrigation, fire protection, whatever. But that doesn't mean, because of the increased energy production, that the power generators aren't using more water for them. I mean, and I'm not an expert on that at all, but I'm sure that's a real thing.
I want to back it up just a second. Going away from the specifics of data centers and talking more about the proposals. What transparency can we have if there's going to be any offers proposed, or they want to meet with any officials, that these are going to be done in private, individual? I would like to see that if anyone's going to approach our village and approach any of our city members, that they're approached as a group on a community site versus, off-site somewhere. With all the allegations throughout the country with these data centers going up, backroom deals being struck, possible illicit activity behind some of these things, I would like to know that the companies are gonna be meeting with our officials as a group in an office or a space such as this versus somewhere offsite. And then I would also like to know that, if our officials are gonna talk about these data centers to any degree, that we keep it to strict factuals. I've seen things get thrown around about, billions of dollars in revenue potential, and, none of that is factual at this point. Again, there's no proposal, there's no possible end user, so we don't know.
Right.
For every data center that goes up that generates $1 billion, there's one that goes up that generates 0. So I don't wanna hear hypotheticals being sold to the community on what potentially they can see fiscally come back to them in the form of tax breaks and savings until it actually gets to that point.
Right, yeah. And I think to your first point, what the village board, and what the village administrator asked me to do is, like, set up these things so that as information comes in, we have meetings like this, that we could share them. And we have an email list that we could share them. And obviously, we have social media, that we could share any update we get along the way. So, but I agree, everything else right now is very speculative. There are examples of, now I agree with you, there is no such thing as billions of dollars in tax revenue. That does not exist anywhere, and will not exist in any of our lifetimes, and probably our children's lifetimes. But there is billions of dollars in assessed value, okay, which then, obviously, everyone who owns property knows you get your assessment, and then based on your assessment, that's how your tax bill gets calculated.
Now, it's true in Wisconsin, though, that they can't actually tax the value of, like, the GPUs and servers inside the facility.
That is, so it gets a little tricky because personal property is no longer taxed in Wisconsin, okay? So then the question is, what are the fixtures, okay? Because like when your house is assessed, they're looking at the actual property, the land, the improvements, but they're not looking at your, bedroom set, okay? So how is it taxed here? The same way for an industrial use like a data center. And I can just tell you, in Mount Pleasant, the first one that is, I would say finished, I mean, it's like 99% finished, and was assessed that way in 2026, was assessed at over $1 billion. Okay, so that will equate to, how much, do you know, like
About $48 million in taxes.
Okay, so way less than $1 billion in revenue, but I think people confuse assessment with revenue, okay? Because it's just a fraction of the
And I wanna
assessment.
make sure that, people aren't persuaded by things that aren't factual.
And again, with this gentleman's point back here about the, not allowing any costs on ratepayers, these are things that a village or a city can negotiate an agreement, just like the tax revenue. They could say, look, whether you build this or not, what you build, when you build, you're paying this much in taxes for the next 20 years, or something like that.
Minimum guarantee.
Yeah. And that happens, in Wisconsin, that developers agree to that. Yes, sir.
Would you explain to me again about that property tax, because you talked about now, like your bedroom set, they don't know the value of that.
Right.
So you have all these, like, trillions of dollar maybe, I mean, computers in this
Yeah.
building.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like my bedroom set?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Well,
How much money that's worth?
Oh, yeah, well, the
And that
state,
doesn't get taxed?
yeah,
Just the
The
building?
state exempted that.
Holy buckets.
Yes, sir.
So what's the exception, thing? Because obviously there was something with Port Washington where it's worth like 2 billion, 2.1 billion estimate, but tax-wise for 20 years, it's like estimated closer to 120 million? From where it's at a 16%.
Oh, okay. I know what you're
I don't know
talking
how
about.
that really works, but if you know.
You're gonna have to follow along closely here,
Okay.
because there's a lot of different numbers, okay? So, Port Washington, the leadership in Port Washington wanted to get a benefit from this development to help the city upgrade its sewer and water systems, okay? They have deteriorating pipes, okay? So what was happening is, when it rained a lot, the storm water would infiltrate the sanitary sewer, which is not uncommon. It happens, do you guys ever hear of MMSD? In Milwaukee, they dump sewage into Lake Michigan when there's a lot of rain. And so Port was seeing this problem. They had some other problems, horrible flooding issue, because a creek that runs through town was just not, it needed to be restored. They have a bluff revetment issue because they're right on Lake Michigan. And so what Port wanted to do is say to the data center, look, we understand that you say you're gonna create $2 billion of assessed value, which is gonna equate to, tens of millions of dollars in revenue over many years, right? Because it takes time to obviously build it and everything. And so the deal that Port struck was, why don't you prepay all that for the next 20 years? To the tune of $170 million in city infrastructure costs. So that's what's happening right now. And then they created a TID so that so that the developer, if they develop and as they create the value that they say they're gonna create, they can get reimbursed through the TID for the money they put up front, okay? So it's like, they're paying their taxes, but they paid it all, they're paying it now, okay, for the next 20 years. Then obviously, when the TID closes, the money doesn't stay in the TID anymore, and it's just general tax revenue that we all understand. The 120 million that you referenced, that was a significant negotiating point in that deal, okay? Because, the more money that stays in the TID, the quicker the data center gets reimbursed for the money they gave to the city, okay? So they want all of it to stay in the TID and get paid back. What we did is say, look, we're not gonna create the TID until after the 2026 assessment is done. Why? Because all the land that the data center bought was assessed as agricultural land. And in Wisconsin Constitution says all property must be taxed uniformly, okay? Except for agricultural land. They get a break, okay? So what does
You get a
that mean?
big break. I have
Huge break.
agricultural land.
Right. Mhm.
You pay $50 for 30 acres.
Exactly, right.
Exactly.
That's the only type of land use that has a different way of being taxed, so way less. So the tax revenue on the land prior to the data center buying it was less than $100,000 a year. Okay, that was the tax revenue.
How many acres do they
So
have?
I wanna say it's around 1,000, yeah, around 1,000. so a little less than 1,000. And so, after the data center bought it, well, they're not buying it for ag land anymore. So we said, you lose that ag use exemption. Okay, so now it's taxed like any other property. And so the tax assessment prior was like $8 million. Now it's $120 million. And that did not stay in the TID. So out of the $120 million, you capture, I don't know, $1 million or so dollars in revenue every year that stays out of the TID and goes towards the school district and the city and the county. So that's where the $120 million goes. It's kind of complicated, but hopefully that makes sense. Yes, sir.
Just from your experience, how much land is generally purchased in one of these things? So we have an idea, is it 100 acres, or to your point, 1,000 acres, or thousands of acres?
Well, I mean, Mount Pleasant, Microsoft is by far the biggest, wouldn't you agree? And that's, they
Just under 2,000.
They have almost 2,000 acres. Port Washington is 1,000 acres, but right now, they have only submitted plans to develop for about half that. But I've heard of data centers that are looking at 250 acres, you know, so I think it just depends on, you know, the developer and what they're trying to do. So I think in this case, I have no idea.
So just in perspective, you're basically saying about a square mile, 640 acres square mile.
Well, that's
That's an average, would we say that?
I wouldn't say that's accurate because, like, Microsoft is really big.
Right.
I don't know, I'm not aware of any other proposal anywhere in the state of Wisconsin that reaches that scale, okay?
But just so I can put it in my mind and picture what we're looking at.
I
We're
wouldn't
looking
say
at
average,
about a
because
square
like, for
mile.
example, Janesville's 300, less than 300 acres. Wisconsin Rapids, from what I'm told, is like 250 acres. Do you know what the forest was that they were looking at?
Again, when we say that, 250 probably the average for a data center.
So a square, a half mile square.
Yeah, I mean, if they're doing more than one, example in Port, there's 4 of them going up there, okay?
But it's a
And
huge
That's
amount.
600.
That's 600 and some odd acres on those 4, correct, with all the other infrastructure they need on the site. Again, you know, I mean, Microsoft has got, they just approved 15 more plus the 2 they got going. But again, they're different sizes, depending upon what they use it, that they need it for. If it's like, you know, just a cloud-based data center, or are you using it for something else besides?
I guess what I'm getting at is, I'm trying to say,
I would say
this is a
roughly
huge
200.
amount of land. It isn't like an 80-acre field over here.
No.
No.
We're talking
Typically not.
square.
The smallest one
miles.
I've heard of is like 250 acres.
So,
There's one in western Wisconsin that's 2 acres.
2 acres? Okay. I'm not, and again, I don't know about all of them, I can only speak to the ones I've heard about, so,
That's Hammond, Wisconsin.
yeah. But I don't think, let's not, you know, Cloverleaf was the initial developer in Port Washington, okay, so just going off of that, I mean, I don't think they're looking for 2 acres. That's pure speculation, but I'm using my own common sense, you know, when I say that. So,
One of the other comments that keeps coming up on Facebook, which I think is a horrible place to do your due diligence, by the way, is the extreme amount of increase in property in utility bills. And my understanding in reading some of the information on data centers is that there is a separate bill listing, a separate classification for data centers that doesn't loop all of their usage in with residential and commercial, and I just wonder.
I mean, my answer to that, obviously, we saw in the news, like, what, a week ago, that the PSC rejected what the data centers proposed and made it more restrictive to put the costs on them, but, you know, my answer to all that is to not rely on other agencies, and if a data center is here, and we are actually gonna negotiate with them, one of the things needs to be like, look, we need to do an analysis of what ratepayers are paying, and if there's any increase, whether it's transmission, whether it's power generation, you're cutting a check back to the community.
So that, she's speaking about the large load tariff, which was an amazing defeat, because originally they wanted us to pay 25%, and they were gonna pay 75, so the PSC really took a bold stand and said, nope, you know, they're gonna pay 100%. However, you know, We Energies and WPS, it's in the news, they have a case before the PSC because they wanna raise our rates. And so,
They always do
our,
that.
right, so, I mean, that's something that we have to fight with the PSC. That's not something, a data center, in my mind, can't be like, well, we as a town want you to tell We Energies they can't increase our rates. That's a totally different fight. It's a piece of the puzzle, but it has to be done through the PSC. That is their job to set rates. And so that, in my mind, I've never seen a contract, a data center contract, to be like what you're saying.
I know, right?
So that's another fight, and they are currently they've already increased our rates, and they would like to increase them in 2027 and 2028.
But they do that every year. We fight
They
that-
do, but part of
we fight
it
that
is
every year.
because of the greater need that we have for all these power plants, which is, this is something I work on all the time, but it's just crazy how many more we need because of the data centers. We don't need them as Wisconsinites, we need them to fuel the data centers in Wisconsin, so.
Yeah,
it's
my
another
point
fight.
is, like, why couldn't a municipality put that risk on the data center through a contract, to say, if our rates go up, we can trace it back to you?
Yep.
It's
I've
just
never
that,
seen it done.
I haven't either, but I don't see anything legally that would prohibit that.
But that's the technicality there, it's proving that rates went up
Sure.
because of them, not just.
Well, I'm just
Rates
assuming
went up
like
because
no
they increased
developer
rates.
would agree, like, if rates go up, period, it's on us, you know, so, but you're right, I mean, it's just an idea that I threw out. Yes,
I have just my thought for the village, and then I'm gonna leave and go protest outside. I just am very disappointed that with everything that we've known in the last year about these centers, that who is really profiting, besides the village for some property tax now, why go through the headache of any of this? This is huge business, this is just huge. We have an awesome industrial park, we have an awesome community, we have an awesome agricultural community here. Why would we wanna do something like this and drain so much, just so much? I'll be dead by the time this is done probably, if this happens. So are most of my people up at my house.
And the water usage.
Yeah, the whole thing is just bananas for our little community. It is. And we all know that. I truly believe that we all know that. We're seeing money, we're seeing in Greenleaf, it was all of a sudden like an $88,000 tax thing was brought out and stuff like that. What is Greenleaf gonna do with $88,000 a year? Come on, we have garbage pickup and that's about it. That's all we need. That's why we all move there.
well, these are the type of comments that we want, okay, so I appreciate that. And you're welcome to stay or go or.
Oh, no, so we walk outside.
But when you talk about water usage, that's something I'm very interested in. Like, what are we, I assume no one objects to using water for like sinks and toilets and, lawn sprinklers, right?
Between that and the mega farms, look at all the water they use and
Oh, yeah,
that and
right.
this, holy man.
Yeah,
Where's
but
our
I'm
water
saying,
going?
like, is
We're
there
not gonna
a,
have that water.
like, again, like we were just talking about, could a municipality put a provision in a contract that holds them accountable for energy rate hikes? I don't see why a municipality couldn't put something in the contract holding them to a certain amount of water consumption. You know, and if they need more water than that, they're not getting it from the municipality, the municipal utility. I mean, Logan, is there any prohibition on doing that you know of?
Saying you can only have this much,
Yeah.
I'll get it somewhere else.
Yeah, if they agree in
If
a
they agree,
contract,
yeah.
right. I mean, that's how I would recommend dealing with the water. is just say, look, we have farms that use a ton of water, you can't, you know, we're worried about water usage. And the two things with water for me is how much you use, and then what we talked about, having these chemicals in the closed loop system, like we don't want, I wouldn't want that going back into the system, ever.
We just take this water for granted, but boy, if that resource is gone, we'd be in trouble.
We get our water from Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
That was
well,
what I was gonna bring up, is just within the last 10 years, we went through a rebuilding of our water line from Green Bay down here, if I remember right, if I'm correct. It's back in like 2018, was it? And if they're gonna build something with that type of water consumption, that 24-inch line that they ran down Highway 41 so that the village of Wrightstown could have water, is now gonna have to be a 24-foot line. Who's paying for that?
And when those leak, Georgia just had a huge leak, they lost
I
like
saw that.
billions of gallons of water. They weren't even accountable for it,
I
they never
saw
even
that.
fined them for that. People had to ration their water and bullshit and stuff like that. They didn't even touch the data center about that.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
Well, and that's the key, they have to be held accountable in any.
But how do you do it?
Well, in any fees.
Who's
that
gonna do it?
Appropriate, because otherwise it's a cost of business.
I mean, honestly, in my mind, what comes to my mind is, how do you hold a company like that accountable? How do you
Right.
hold someone, and,
Especially with a small community like Wrightstown. If you're the city of Madison or the city of Milwaukee, you have the resources and the ability and the people to do that. The village of Wrightstown doesn't.
No. And then
I
who's gonna pay the taxes? Who's gonna pay those bills? You're gonna have, all people's taxes are gonna have to rise up then to pay lawyer fees and stuff then.
I mean, obviously, one way I think you can enforce things is making them post like a very large bond.
A bond?
What happens when the bond runs out, when the bond money runs out?
Well, if it's big enough, you know, that.
Are they gonna do that?
Well,
Like,
exactly,
how much
are
money
they
you
gonna
talking-
do any of this?
Well, so true, but I mean, like, how much money would you talk
And
about?
I think in Wrightstown, from my communications with staff, like, if the answer is no, we're not gonna do that, we're not gonna do this, then the village isn't interested.
If they stay strong,
Right.
Well, and to this gentleman's point, like, if we're already questioning how would we enforce something, the question is why we need to limit it.
right?
Exactly.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if there are ways to enforce, I do think there are ways to
Yeah,
enforce. Would a data center agree to those conditions?
As long as it's all.
Will they say, this is too much, we're going somewhere else? Maybe, I don't know, you know, but.
And we have water and we have a huge electric line running through us
Yeah.
right now. Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the electricity is more important than the water.
So why not just put a moratorium on it? Like, if it's an unpopular opinion to come to the village, and I mean, I don't know how you gather that information accurately, why can't we just put a kibosh to this and just?
Well, I think what we're doing right now, and we have a number of these scheduled, is gathering that information. But, you know, I mean, I guess the question is, if there was a data center developer that agreed to all these kind of pretty radical ideas, you know, that to this person's point, like, may not have been done anywhere else, you know, then is this something the village board supports? Is this something the village supports?
So basically, you're trading possible monetary gains in the form of a property tax for the possibility, and cross our fingers that things don't go sideways.
Well, but again, we talked about the property tax, and you say possible. What if we have that in the agreement?
What if our power goes up 50% every month?
Well, again, I mean, like I said,
And then we put that in the contract, great, but then they send 4 lawyers to dispute it, and then they bury us. in
well,
legal
that's, like I
fees.
said, the bond
You know,
idea
it's
is just one
20
idea.
hypotheticals surrounding it. Like, even if you could put all
Well-
of this in paper and writing, I mean, we could still be sold down the river. 'Cause how many times have you went on the internet and read like, oh my God, I love the data center that went up. There is not you can scour the internet for days and probably not find 1 or 2 people that are like, I'm really glad you put it in down the road for me. It's been
Well,
beneficial
unfortunately,
so
when
far."
we're at this early of a position where we don't even know if there's gonna be a data center saying, okay, we're serious, all we can do is speculate.
Well, you could end the speculation completely. If the popular opinion is we don't want this coming here, here, then just put the moratorium in place and
What are you
let us
going to
get
learn,
on the board.
sir? I sit on the village board. I don't know what you would learn if you put a moratorium on it. Where would you go for your information if all of this stopped, if none of these meetings took place?
I don't know.
Where would you go? Would you go to Facebook for your information? Because if you do, that's a really bad idea.
I would
Let's
hope
just-
transparency would continue, and I hope we continue to be notified.
Where would
of
you
any-
suggest that we go to then if they do some kind of moratorium?
I don't suggest a
I also sit
moratorium.
on
Right.
the board, right? I sit on the board. Last night, I was on the phone until 9:30 last night with a gentleman from Texas. Cause I got online and I said, I'm gonna start calling some of these people that have these and find out what they feel about them, right? So I talked to him on the phone for about an hour, and the very first question I asked him was, what are the negatives? He said construction was a pain in their ass, right? There's a lot of construction workers that are gonna come into the area. He said there's some things down, that trickle down that we didn't think about up front, that we know now. He's like, with more people comes more trash, things like that. He goes, but, overall, the data center that they built down there, what they did is they built ball diamonds, they built parks, they did all of this on top of the revenue that they get for their taxes. He said these are some of the best people that we have ever worked with in our community, as far as basically if we want something, we call them and they're like, yep, sounds good. They got new football equipment, new ball diamonds, things like that, right? So, and then on the water side, I said, how much water are they using? Because he was down in Texas, so I'm sure their design days are much different than what ours are, right? I think the design day around here is about 94, 95 degrees. Down there is probably into the hundreds. He said that their data center, which is about 1,000 acres, uses less water per day than the Holiday Inn does. It's in the town.
What about
So-
the power
That's
plant?
yes.
Well, what-
You're talking
But
about
if it's
direct
a
water.
closed loop
It's a
system.
closed loop
Okay.
system.
Okay, you're
Okay.
talking about the direct water.
Yes.
The indirect water coming from the power plant does not change.
Do you-
And the energy that it needs to use it is much more. And one thing you have
Do you
not
know where the
brought up,
water
did you
that comes
ask them
from-
about the health impacts
I did.
of diesel generators,
Yeah.
kids who have asthma?
They
Really?
used-
And
they-
he's willing to vouch that everyone's gonna be okay?
I'm simply just stating that I had a phone call with them,
I know.
and they forced, part of their deal was that they had to use tier 4 diesel generators, which are certified to run in food facilities, indoors.
Mhm.
So they took precautions against some of those things. So if you go online and you look at a F-150, all you're gonna see is the negatives, because everybody sees something negative, they run online and they just put the negative on there, but yet you see 1,000 of them driving up and down the road that run just fine, but nobody gets online and says, man, do I love my F-150, right? But every time there's a problem, people run to that and put it online. The one down in Port Washington, I've done a lot of research on that one. They use less than 30,000 gallons of water a day. At peak demand, on normal demand is 10 to 15,000 gallons of
It's
water.
not even built yet.
per. I know.
That's what they
told.
say.
They
Yeah.
told the DNR they're gonna
Well,
use.
of course they're going to.
Of course they're
The-
gonna say that.
The village of
Well, the good news
Wrightstown
is-
uses about 225 to 250,000 gallons of water a day.
For people.
So you're talking a 10% increase in water. That's it. And just so you know, if it wasn't a closed loop system, there isn't a single one of us on the
No.
board, and I shouldn't say that because I can't speak for everybody, but there's no way I would ever allow something to come into our village that would strain our water
Well,
services.
first of all.
And the
you're
power
gonna
plant
say-
water, do you know where the power plant water comes from?
It's from Lake Michigan.
Doesn't. It comes from the Fox River. They're not tied into our water system. So they use more water, they just suck it out of the river, and it goes up into the air, right? So there's just a ton
With
of,
chemicals.
I don't know if they're treating it or not, but I can't change that, right? So there's just a lot of, I understand all your different fears. The reason for this is we wanna hear what your fears are, and we wanna see if there's things that we could, if it came, we could put in place to combat those fears, right? If there could be a diesel generator running in this room right now while we're talking, and that's allowed, right, a tier 4 generator, Is that a big deal if there's a few of them sitting out
A
there?
few of them, or like 100 of them?
No idea, 'cause we have no idea how big they wanna do.
You
What did
sound
you-
very pro data center, I would
I'm-
encourage
I'm
you to
pro
speak,
learning.
but I
I'm
can
pro
give you
learning.
about 100 people's names who are living with this, and nurses and doctors, so if you want those,
I would
but-
like to get that
Yeah.
information.
I
And I
would
think
like that
Texas
information
is
too.
selling themselves out. Texas has a huge water problem, and they're selling themselves out by
Yeah.
putting all these data centers in there.
He said that they have
So-
to truck the water in.
I'm sure they do.
Not-
Probably from somewhere that shouldn't be. So I heard yesterday someone told me about this power plant that went up in
It was a
Wrightstown a few
village
years ago
or
down the
the
road
city
on 41.
Manager for.
And then it was
City of
sold
Childress.
a few years later.
I just wasn't sure who he was.
So this is just what I heard, so I don't know, this is what I'm asking. So I heard then that when it was sold, then all of the kickbacks and stuff that Wrightstown was supposed to be getting for this thing, all were gone then, because it was sold.
Are you
So
talking
with that
about,
seven,
are you talking about the power plant in Kokana?
yes, the Wrightstown Kokana one.
We get money, a lot of money every year. There's a
Right.
contract for so many years.
Yeah, I think that's valid.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's-
well, I was just, someone told me yesterday that then it was sold a few years ago to somebody else, and they lost a lot of money then on it, the village and stuff
The
did.
village still gets a huge amount of money every
But
year.
did they lose money though on that sale? I heard yes.
I can follow up on that.
Okay, but it
Did
was
you-
just,
did you
so this
fill out a-
data center goes up, and we all have all these rules and all this, yeah, we're gonna do this for you, we're gonna do this for you, this for you. Somebody else pops in, and then 2 years later, or I mean, even a year later, and then we lose everything. Cause it
Did
could
you
happen.
give me your email address?
Mhm.
Okay.
The one thing I will say, I agree with Ryan, we both sit on the village board. When the whole kerfuffle came up about Greenleaf and people being outraged and protest signs and people meetings and stuff on Facebook, millions of gallons, hundreds of millions of gallons of water, your utility bills will skyrocket. As a village board member, I thought if this thing had, put your arm down, I'm speaking.
Well,
I
just have a
thought
question
if
too,
this
yeah.
thing comes before the village board, I would be totally against this. This is not something that I would look to have in my community. However, if you dig into it, it's not hundreds of millions of gallons a day.
Well, it may
People-
not. You don't know.
But, right, but I'm saying if you have a closed loop system, you fill it up once, and then all you do is use the water that goes through the system for the bathrooms and the kitchen, for the workers who work there in the office. So your high school, I believe somebody said, uses 1 million gallons. You know, you can catastrophize about everything, but you've gotta do some research.
Let's,
If it was in your
this
backyard,
lady,
you could see
let's
it from
respect
your-
this lady.
No,
as
no,
a-
you're fine, I'm good. Do you want this in your backyard though?
My backyard is a ravine, so I doubt you could fit it there.
Okay, but if you didn't live in your backyard and you lived somewhere else, say on Shanty Road, would you want this in your backyard? Have you
In my-
seen Fort Washington?
I have, I went by
Yeah.
Fort
Do
Washington.
you want that in
and
your
it's-
I mean,
backyard?
I would say, I
Hell
would not
no.
want the construction, that's for sure.
Oh my God,
But
No.
an
to answer the
eyesore of a
question
mile
about
long
would I want a data
warehouse.
center in the backyard, my answer would be, I need more information about this data center. Because I
You
don't
would
know.
move.
Okay. I have a question also. So I understand the point of where you get your information, and you've made it very clear we should not get information through Facebook. But a couple statements now that have been brought up, sounds like it came right out of the Spirit newspaper when they ran 2 consecutive weeks of articles.
3.
3 weeks.
Well, the third week was not Cloverleaf exclusively,
It
it was
was the
regarding
mayor.
Fort Washington, but, so in there, he says, geez, no more water than using for the break room and to flush toilets. And honestly, those talking points were almost verbatim from another article that Cloverleaf provided. So it's not like there was like a one-on-one interview with this information. It is their PR paperwork that was given to the Spirit. And are you getting your information and your knowledge on this from the Spirit or on
I'm
Facebook?
doing my
or
own research.
And where are
Can
you
I add
getting your
something?
research from?
May I add something?
Yeah, I would like to
Ryan
know where
says-
she's getting her research
Well,
from. and
Ryan
please
said
do
in
that.
those articles though, if you read the fine print, that he's just trying to provide different viewpoints to get us going. And there's loads, the internet, my gosh, we are so, this is not 50 years ago, there is a lot of information, but Facebook is, it's nationwide, I mean worldwide, that you know, it's not a quality source. You have to always go.
But the internet is a quality source.
You
But
have
for-
many
so,
more options.
Just on
I
the
say.
water usage issue, okay, this lady,
This is the expert. This is Clean Wisconsin. They did a whole analysis. They spent their time, their money, they have experts. The Wrightstown Spirit newspaper is not the expert.
but so you
They
seem
say
to
they
have
were.
done it, you
So
seem to
I'm
be
like,
very well
they didn't
informed
say
on the
they
In
water.
Facebook, a lot of that is people sharing, say if the news does a story and they have their resources and they're using stuff like this, that's how people can learn. People aren't just making stuff up on Facebook, so I feel like that's really a put down, because it's a way to share information too.
If it's
So that-
valid, if it's
Well, I do see
factual.
things like.
Well, I don't think the Spirit paper was factual
No.
for you for what you're talking about, because
For flushing
Clean Wisconsin
toilets?
does not agree with you.
Shit, and him saying in the paper about comparing it to flushing so many toilets, are you kidding me? That was just the worst. I
So-
called him about that.
You,
Come
so
on,
you
you're
made
comparing
a
this,
joke,
comparing this to flushing toilets.
so you made a point a couple times
Ridiculous.
about the indirect water usage.
Yes, there's direct and indirect.
So, but I think a lot of people are talking about the direct water usage.
Yes, but you have to look at both.
Oh,
because
I
it's
agree,
water.
I agree.
Yeah.
But from a, you seem extremely well informed on this, so I'm asking a question. Direct water usage, closed loop system,
Mhm.
what is it? Like, what are they using water for?
Do you want
I'll
this report?
take that from you, but I mean, my understanding is it's for the facilities, like the sprinklers and the sinks and the toilets. Obviously fill up the closed loop system.
No, the closed loop system typically are for the cooling of the equipment.
I know, but you need to put water in it, right?
Correct.
But not consistently, you need to fill it up.
There are times you might have to top it off.
Yeah,
due to
but my
natural
question
evaporation.
is, I agree we can't ignore the indirect water, okay, that is a real thing, okay? But when we're talking about how much the actual data center is using on a closed loop system, I'm not asking for how many gallons, because no one, I think, really has that information at their fingertips, but what are they using water for on site? That's what I want, that's my question. My understanding is, it's not very much. That doesn't mean, to your point, that there's a lot of water being used to generate the power from another location, okay, and that's something to be considered. But I just wanna see if anyone disagrees with that assessment, and if you do, now's the time to educate me, so that I can, yes, sir.
I can speak from a professional standpoint. I'm a steam fitter by trade. I have installed hundreds of these closed loop systems. And to his point, the system is filled, and a system such as the one that would maybe go here, with all that mixture, and it's glycol and water. There's two different types of glycol. One is one that you can actually put down the drain and go to your wastewater treatment plant. The other one is similar to what you would have in your car that has a glycol mixture that is not biodegradable or that is safe to put into the environment. However, those types of systems are in every one of your schools that have a chill water system, your hospitals, Lambeau Field. I mean, I can't remember the number down at Neenah High School, when they built that school, that's like 500,000 square foot school. That system of water that they put in there was $1 million, which equates to, you can get that at that time for about $6 a gallon pre-mixed. And those systems, once they're filled, you have zero evaporation on them because they're closed. If you have evaporation out of those systems, it's not good for the system itself, because now your system isn't operating the way it's supposed to be operating. But there is zero evaporation, zero water usage. And the only water usage that you have in a data center, when you have a closed loop, is what he said, your sinks and your toilets. If you're gonna do any wash down, your sprinkler system, your, no different than at your home. or any other business around here that you see using water, tap water, that's where they use it. I mean, you don't want a data center in your backyard, but what if it was a foundry? What if it was a mega
Well, I
farm?
agree with
What if
that,
it
that's
was
why we need better
a
rules
hospital?
and stuff, I agree with all of that.
I
And
mean-
then down here said about things about size and stuff, things coming in. I was all for that for Greenleaf, you know, like, we just want something in there to say, okay, we could only have something like so big in there, instead of taking up the whole mile-long block.
So I'm
You know.
just sticking on this water use issue. I think, at least for my part, I want to investigate more how much extra water the power generation offsite facility might be doing. And maybe you could leave me with one of those copies, but is anyone in disagreement with this gentleman's explanation about the onsite water?
Well, I just don't know, like,
How often do they exchange the water?
They don't,
The data centers, ever, never?
never. Once you fill it, anytime you go to work on it, you drain that out,
Yeah.
what you need to drain out, and you put that back in. You don't dispose of it because it costs too much.
so they have water tanks
doesn't
on
go back.
site?
Huh?
They have big tanks on site that they hold it to put it back in?
You'll bring a tanker in if you need a tanker, you'll bring in totes if you do it in totes, however you gotta do it, you preserve that. No different than when it comes in, it'll come in on tankers.
Do you have any idea how many gallons that system holds?
That's what I was
I
just
mean,
like, what are you doing
again,
putting that
to
in?
your point, we don't know the size of the,
Oh, sure.
facility. And
And that's
I mean,
something I
Do you have
can.
any-
Microsoft, that one is huge. I mean,
Right.
that's got 42-inch pipe on it, and there's like 13,000 feet of it.
Do you know
Of
Paul,
that
how
size
many
pipe.
gallons?
Holy crap.
But this data center isn't gonna be nowhere near up in this area like that, like the one down in Port Washington, but over in Beaver Dam, that's a closed loop system. The one in Port Washington is, there's no, open loop systems being installed in Wisconsin for data centers at this point in time. And I don't think the community leaders are gonna allow it if it does come up that way. And you're gonna have, like down in, Beaver Dam, the largest pipe on there for the chill water system is 24-inch, and it operates at 78 degrees for a chill water loop system. Now, that is actually unheard of for a chill water loop system to be operating at that temperature. Typically, they operate around 42 degrees, like in your schools or hospitals, and they have.
What do they heat that with, and how do they heat that water up to 78 degrees?
Well, I think
They don't heat it, it comes off the chillers.
They're using, so,
They use it to cool.
right.
With
So-
evaporators and condensers is how they, no different in your house, that would be like an R22 or a 410A system of, people here are Freon, it's not really Freon, but it's 410A, most systems nowadays, and that's what cools your house through a condenser outside, an evaporator, and a air handler inside the house.
Okay,
That's how your house is being cooled.
so it's electric.
Well, it's electric, data centers take a ton of electricity.
Right.
Nobody's gonna deny that.
Okay.
Now, we have power plants in the state of Wisconsin that, supply the state of Wisconsin. We were at public service a couple of weeks ago, and on a day like today, when it's sunny in the whole Midwest, all the way down to Missouri, they say that wind and solar produce like 56% of the power on the grid in that time frame. 56%. If you told me that before I heard that from them, I'd tell them you were crazy. But they told us right at Fox Energy's power plant here, right in Wrightstown, when they look on the grid on a sunny day, they'll put out 56% of the power for during the day. At night, oh, it's different. Now your power plants need to come up. Point Beach, that puts out just over 1,200 megawatts of energy. The one over here is 500 megawatts of energy. If they put a data center here, is there potential that that power plant could be expanded? Absolutely. Do we know that for sure? No, that's a green energy's question.
I'm too skeptical of that. They're gonna tell you anything they want, is my thought, you know?
Who's that?
Like, public service, to say like.
No, that's public knowledge, how much energy is being produced by alternative energy sources, whether it's wind, water, or solar. But, if you wanna see solar panels go up in this farmland,
Oh, I see.
go out to Two Creeks area over on the lake shore out there, and there's plenty of them for you to look at, and it's actually pretty sad to see all that farmland turn.
Well, and
turn
the
into solar.
skepticism
It's not worth anything.
is real, and so many people have it. You know, to this gentleman's point back here, you know, about Port Washington's data center developer saying they're gonna use 30,000 gallons of water a day. Well, that's what they're telling the DNR, but it's not up and running, it's under construction. You know, Microsoft has given numbers as well. I mean, the good thing is soon, and again, I'm only talking about, I can't speak to what the power generators may have to increase their water usage for, but for on-site, you know, we, I think, will be able to get real numbers soon from Microsoft. Because their first facility, which is humongous, I would think bigger than any other that's gonna occur in Wisconsin. I mean, it's 1 million square feet, this first phase. So we'll actually be able to see, okay, what are they using for water? And that'll be helpful information. Yes, sir.
Attorney Smith, I want to redirect back to public health and specifically talking about the diesel generator release. And I have a citation here, not by Facebook, but so according to the Institute of Electrical Electronics Engineers, data centers caused about $6 billion in public health damages due to this type of air pollution in 2023. So they release 200 to 600 times nitrous oxides. So in terms of energy consumption and water consumption, we have to look at air quality as well, and that's a fact. I look at fact patterns. I don't look at the citations we look at to understand how to form an opinion based upon facts. This is IEEE. And
Yeah.
how to refute that? Engineers, hard to refute that.
Yeah, I agree. The air, you know, we're talking about all these different things that, historically speaking, a village doesn't assess or enforce, like energy rates, that's the PSC, right? Like water, it's usually a water utility. Like air, that this gentleman brought up, air pollution, that's the DNR. I think my point here is, on all these things, because of the lack of leadership we've had in the state of Wisconsin from the state level, regulating any of this. I mean, right now,
Difficult.
every single person, I don't care if you're Democratic or Republican, they're not touching this, especially in a campaign season, okay?
It's ridiculous.
They will not touch it, they will not regulate it, they will not use the word, you know, data center at all if they can avoid it. So, you know, we're back to, okay, well, the village needs to put restrictions on that usually we're not used to doing, like about energy rates, or water usage, or air pollution, okay? And it may be to the point where we have all these demands, basically, and restrictions that they'd have to abide by, that they'd say, look, we're gonna go somewhere else, to maybe a village that isn't as restricted, you know, but I think they're finding that most are going to be. What about another topic that we haven't touched at all? Obsolescence. Does anyone have any concerns about that?
Yes, definitely. That's why we don't, well, through the history of the village, there are businesses that have come to the village, and correct me on the board, for those board members that are here if I'm wrong, but if say for example, a big box store wanted to come to Wrightstown, right? That takes up a lot of acreage and the whole bit, right? We're looking at all the employment, the convenience, all the rest. But we know a big box store has a very limited period of time they're gonna stay there if they're not making their revenue, right? So if, knowing that, the village, I don't think, would support a company coming in like that unless we know for sure we're not gonna be left with an empty building that you can't do anything with, and we get no tax revenue, we have no employment coming from, right? So I am concerned that, what does it mean with this type of proposal? what do we do if suddenly the technology changes quickly or something else happens with that company with significant losses? Because any company can come down. If you look at what happened in the last 20 years, companies we never thought would be touched are gone. So what happens with obsolescence?
Yeah, I think, I have a couple thoughts on that. Like first, just using my own common sense, it's a, you know, and I look back at just my own lifetime on how technology has changed. I mean, think of the sizes of computers, you know, in the 80s or the late 70s, you know, compared to what this can do.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's a very obvious thing that just a normal person would think about, like, okay, to do whatever it is the data center is doing, whether that's AI or cloud storage or whatever they need this many servers in this humongous warehouse, right? Well, what if these servers shrink to this size, you know? Then what happens? And what if that happens 5 years from now, you know? And so, now I acknowledge I am no technology expert, you know, and you would think that the people who are spending billions of dollars to build these things, you know, figured that out and know, well, this isn't gonna go obsolete anytime soon because we're investing all this money. But I wouldn't put all my trust into that, you know, so I think that's where we come back to, I forget who brought up the point, I think it was you, about the tax revenue, you know, because if it goes obsolete, yeah, you might have a vacant building, okay, which isn't good. But the whole reason any community would do this is for tax revenue. And if you have a vacant building, what happens to your tax revenue, okay? So I think that's where you go back to the point and you make a data center say, well, for the next so many years, you are going to pay this much tax revenue, minimum. And if you're assessed higher than that, great. But if something happens and you're assessed lower, you gotta make the gap. And again, how do you enforce?
Right, that's a lot.
That's where I think the bottom comes.
That's a lot for anybody to take on, that's a lot for a board to be thorough on, to make sure you dot every I and cross every T. I mean, come on.
And I do think there is just being from Wisconsin and living here my whole life, there's always a feeling that I think is shared by people from Wisconsin, live in Wisconsin, that someone's trying to take advantage of us.
Well, they are. We have mines here, we have, what, 34 data centers now here. Do we need anything more to get to the greater good? Not really. I think we're covering it.
Well, I think the problem is, and the reason that you have any municipality even remotely interested, is because of the way the state has set up how municipalities are funded. How municipalities pay for your police and your fire and your roads and all the other services that the village pays for. And it's extremely restrictive, and they're looking for ways to try to figure out, I mean, there's a ton of communities that are just absolutely drowning, you know, when it comes to their budget. And the only way the state has given them as a solution is new development. That's it. That's their only way out. And so that's why you see, I think, communities that are interested in this. It's because it's their only lifeline, or else it's, you know, levy limit law. That's what we're talking about here. That was passed just over 20 years ago. And it basically says, you can't raise your taxes in your community, can't raise your levy, unless it's proportionate to your new development for that year, okay? Now that sounds good. I don't like paying a lot of taxes either, property taxes either. But someone who's represented municipal governments as long as I have, I see what that happens to communities that have no room to develop.
Right.
Like a city of Racine, or like a city of South Milwaukee, that they're built out. They're built out. There is no new development. So what have they done for the last 20 years? The only thing you can do, which is cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. Close your senior center, close your library, you know, cut positions, whatever. But now, 20 years later, there are cities and villages in the state that literally there's no other place to cut. Like, and this, because at some point the citizens expect base level of service, like when you call 911, you expect someone to answer. Yes, yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna clarify something that you said, is that the only people agreeing to this are the leaders who are voting and saying yes to it. But the people who are opposing it. So even the leaders that said yes did not do it with the community standing behind them. Yes to data centers. They didn't want it in their community. And then you have 5 of them that had signed NDAs. And you have many other ones with
Oh, give me
voting.
5 cities.
Yeah, and then you have many other ones that got proposed and got shot down because the community had to work a full-time job and then work a full-time job and a half trying to protect their family, fighting against proposals, fighting for moratoriums, fighting for zoning, fighting for referendums. So
Yeah, well,
you said something that made it sound like, this is kind of what they had to do.
Well,
but it
I'm
really just
saying
came
the
down to a couple
leadership.
leaders
Yeah.
that decided against what their community wanted.
well,
which
and
is
I think those
extremely
leaders
tragic.
It is tragic.
have an understanding. I mean, how many people who just aren't involved in government or local government understand the levy limits?
Right,
Almost nobody.
right,
And why would you?
right.
You know? And so, but the people who sit on the board or the common council, they understand it, because they have to pass a budget every year.
But they're put there to do what's right for the community and to listen to the community. So it's a real not
Yes, sir.
good.
So let's hypothetically say a project is approved, something's coming to town, whether it's for or against it, there's gonna be increased tax revenue. What kind of guarantees would we as community members, property owners who are maybe saying yes to this for the relief of property taxes, what kind of guarantee is any increased tax budget actually gonna be passed back to us in the form of reduced property taxes versus being taken in by the village and spent on, we're gonna build a new road, well, actually, this year, we're not gonna give you the tax break, we're gonna use it to upgrade the school or something like that. I mean, if we're gonna make the sacrifice and something comes to town, I'd like to know that I get something out of
Yeah,
it.
you're
versus the
100%
route
right.
that
I mean, people, proponents of data centers, they talk about, this substantial increase in tax revenue from property taxes. And generally speaking, what I have seen is that is true, okay? There is a huge increase. But that doesn't automatically equate to lower taxes. Because you could have a common council or a village board or a school district, okay, saying, well, instead of keeping our budget where it is or a little increase, we're gonna take all this new revenue and we're gonna increase it. We're gonna triple our police department, things like that. So, I mean, the local elected officials have to hold the line on that. I mean, that's a real thing.
And I will say this, I'm on the village board, I've been on the board for 11 years. Every year at budget time, Travis gives us 3 options for taxes. And there's no increase, which really doesn't give anybody, even a little bit more in the pay, the people who work for the village. That's really not an option. There's the increase in the middle, that is what we usually pick. And then there's the, if we really wanna get something, we're gonna have to tax people a lot more money. We have a lot of board meetings just to discuss the budget. It's not one meeting, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 7, just to come up with something that's palatable, that we, as people who live here, can deal with. And we take it very seriously. So if we had a business come in, whether it's a Country Visions or, well, that's not a good example. If we had a business come in and say, okay, we're going to.
Like Ace,
Like Ace.
just came in.
And they're going to be contributing to the revenue that we take in. We want to make sure that we're doing our very best, not to add in another $1 million fire truck. We just got a new fire truck. It's been on order for about 3 years, so we could get a cut in what we had to pay. If we ordered it early 3 years ago and we just got it now, we could save maybe $60,000. We look at things very carefully. We look at things because we live here and we don't wanna pay more taxes than we have to. So the very idea that we welcome somebody in under the guise of a couple $100,000 extra or whatever, $1 million extra in revenue, and then keep it for ourselves so we could go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff, that is not this village board. If you came to any one of our budget meetings, you would know that.
Well, and there's challenges for folks that haven't lived in the village for a long time. I've been with the village for almost 20 years now. Started in the Public Works Department as Director of Public Works, and then applied and was lucky enough to get the administrator position. In the Director of Public Works, when I came into this village, we had 2 utilities that were in the red because we didn't stick money in infrastructure. It was hold the rate, there was no development, so there was no generation of new interest, so everything was on the ratepayer. All the sidewalks, all the roads were assessed to the property owners at that point. After some really hard work from staff and the board here, all those things were turned around. We had utilities that were back in the black, were generating revenues to help fight exceeding costs. We had road budgets that were $25,000. If anybody knows maintenance, you can't hardly crack fill a parking lot for $25,000. So we weren't maintaining roads, we weren't maintaining parks. The buildings weren't necessarily getting maintained. We brought in a water source from the city of Green Bay into the village of Wrightstown. It's a gravity-fed line that comes all the way from Kewanee to Wrightstown. We engineered it to be as efficient as we possibly could and bring the best quality water to the village, because as some of you know that have been here a long time, the water was very hard. We cleaned 3 feet of iron and manganese out of our towers every year. We had 38 grains of hardness. Right now we have 8. Tax-wise, we opened TIFs to help with development. Obviously, we all know TIFs don't benefit you today, but to get some of the infrastructure that we need to get done, to get the roads we had to do, that we added water and sewer up County U. The 2 businesses that the board would not approve the project to put in the sewer and water on County U until we had 2 businesses locked in. Because if we had locked the 2 businesses, which is Tweak Garrett and Primpro, they would pay for that infrastructure. It would not go on ratepayers, and it would not go on taxpayers. That infrastructure on County U would be paid solely by the TIF with just those 2 buildings if it closed out. And we kept going on that. We went from $189 million of an equalized value and development in 2015, and as the board was proactive and kicked into development, and yes, opening TIDs, I know, does not have direct or instant impact to ratepayers, but we now are almost at $600 million of value in the village in the last 10 years. They've been doing very diligent work to put in all the infrastructure, all the projects that move forward on it, and every year we struggle with budgets on adding equipment, keeping upgrades to whether it's body cameras or police cars or cop cars. When I started here 20 years ago, we plowed roads with pickup trucks. I don't know many communities that do that. It was probably 8 meetings to discuss getting a second large piece of equipment, which was a payloader that we could use for both composting and road maintenance and now plowing. And we found a hell of a deal. It was an old leased machine again. We didn't just go out and say brand new. We took snow plowing on a normal event that used to take 16, 18 hours, brought it to 4. We paid for the new payloader in less than a year with that. We've continually trying to improve as many things as we can, road projects. Every year the team brings in probably at least $1 million of grants for roads, for parks, for stormwater treatment, you name it. Vehicles, we're getting a generator here in the back of the building. Like, every one of our staff here also runs all the events. There's not a paid parks department or events committee. I'm setting up stages, I'm tearing down tents, I'm flipping burgers. I was here calling bingo last night. You won't find a more community responsible team than what we have here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm so happy that you are so pleased with your board and with yourself for your accomplishments. It's wonderful. It's really good for the town. But I feel, and I think a lot of people feel, that this project, if and when it would happen, is just way over the top of what any people can handle with a board of, did you say 5 members?
There's 7.
7, you know, and I know you have resources and et cetera like that, but, I mean,
Well, the challenge is, so.
it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, where I was going with it is every project is a challenge, right? So we went through a park and recreation plan. 1, to be able to get grants, and 2, to help better manage what's coming in the future as far as just community needs as we grow, right? So park and rec plan is anything from bike and ped trails to park plans, whatnot. In the survey, we had many community meetings, right? One thing that's been coming up for probably a decade is splash pads, right? Or swimming pools. We have a site in Wrightstown, that's an old school site, and we propose it as a park with a potential splash pad. It's pretty centrally located in the community, has utilities by it. I just ruined the world with a park with a splash pad. Where I'm going with it is, the group tries doing the best decisions they can with public input as well, and it's still a losing battle at some point. We said, okay, we won't put in a park and a splash pad there because some people didn't want a park, they didn't want more people in their backyard, they didn't want all those things, right? So we presented a single family dwellings. Well, I don't want that either, I just wanted a green field. Well, that's amazing, and I'm glad, you know, I wish I could use the 40 acres next to my house like it's my yard, right? And that's what they're doing with this chunk of land. But we didn't make people happy even with that, right?
Well, I get that, but you're talking,
And I know this is on large scale, but to my point is,
it's huge.
everything needs to be evaluated. You look at it, you take public input, and it may not be the right, if a proposal comes to the village, it may not be right. But you have to look at everything that comes to the village.
May I ask a question about the tax, because you've said very often it's the tax benefit that really interests the community, of course. Can I just clarify, I know that we, had a horrendous situation with the last school referendum, and there's discussion of future referendums, and our taxes are extremely high here, we all know that. To absorb even more with a new referendum would be really difficult, especially for those on a fixed income or young families. I feel for the young families just getting started, it's hard. Well, is it true that money that if this was approved, and I don't saying I want this approved, but if it was approved, would some of that money then be could some of that money offset the cost for the community on improvements in the school?
So all
Could
tax.
Could that actually happen?
With any benefit, all taxing entities, other than the TIF, is a little bit difficult, right? Because the TIF, so how a TIF is structured for people that don't know it, right? You take a chunk of land, say it's worth $100,000, right? Every taxing entity keeps collecting taxes on that $100,000 till the end of the TIF, right? But say that property is now worth $100 million, right? That is stuck in that TIF to pay for infrastructure and different things until it's done. So in that case, the school district may not benefit as much from that project or from those developments as what they could. But say one that doesn't come in a TID, say I bring in a new manufacturer today and they bring $1 million of value, all taxing entities get value from that $1 million development. So the village, the school, the county, the technical college, everyone gets a piece of that pie based on their rate. And that's another thing too that you bring up on taxes. I encourage everyone to go on the website also. On our website, we have budgets on the website, and we have handbooks or a review of that budget on there. It speaks to where our levy's been, where our rates have been. We are as low or lower than we've been all the way back to 2012 with our rate. And yes, we're still high. And to some of the historical things that I spoke of before, those are the reasons why we're at some of that spot. But the board has been very diligent. We've added a full-time police department. We've done a lot of things to increase services and make infrastructure better in the village.
But
And
the
really
school
and
issue,
really
it
towed
doesn't
that line.
necessarily, you need
Well, the
because of
school is what it is.
I
I
just
mean,
wanted to make sure we're clear on that,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are
the,
looking
the
for
school
that
taxes will go down, I would imagine too, but to
Well-
Chris's
it's in
point,
the
it's,
TID.
it's based on boards, right? If,
Perfect.
if a development came in right now, and again, I'm not saying data center, but a manufacturer came in, donated $1 million to that budget, the school, the village, all the entities could keep that $1 million and keep their budget static, and people would see a decrease.
Even if there's a TID.
No.
If it's not a
That's
TID.
why I want to clarify.
Yeah.
Because
So
lot
if
of
there's a
people are looking
TID,
for that.
okay, normally every dollar you pay on from your property tax bill gets split up. Some
Right.
goes to the village, some goes to the county, some goes to the school district, you know, so it gets split up. When you have a TID, it stays in the TID, okay?
Okay, so there would not
But
necessarily
here's,
be relief.
but to the TID,
Not while the TID is open.
Right.
Okay.
but here's the thing on the TID too, and sorry to interrupt, Chris, but we have no capacity in our TID. We can't open up a TID. If a data center proposal were to come to the village, it wouldn't be in a TID. We
Okay,
don't
that's
have
what I
capacity
know.
within the village for that.
So, that's important, because some of these companies basically say, and not just data centers, but developers, period, will
Right.
say, we need a TID, or we can't do the development. You know, that is extremely common in Wisconsin, so
But we're not there.
here we can't even do it.
We can't do it. We're-
We can't do it. So
So-
the
You heard
schools
so-
one
would
board
get
member
relief.
say he would never support a TID.
Yeah, there's a,
But
there's
the
a, there's a,
schools would get a could
Oh,
have
Correct.
relief. That's important.
everyone would get as instant a benefit as you could.
Okay, thank you.
But,
That's critical to me.
but there's this, part of the statute says you can't be over 12% of your equalized value. Our TIDs are very successful and they are already over that. So there is no opportunity, no matter how bad anybody wanted to do so, unless we closed out all of our TIDs, there's no way you could do that. And to close them all out right now would take a lot. Yeah.
So, but it's very important, Travis mentioned it, I mentioned it before, just because the new revenue comes in, okay, so the school district, let's just say gets a bunch of new revenue, okay, from data center or any other big development. They then have to choose when they're voting on their budget, not to take all this new revenue and spend it.
Exactly.
Oh, of
Yes.
course, right,
Yes.
right. I just try to see, because there's a lot of misinformation on
Yes.
that, and it's really hard to filter.
But assuming your elected officials would say, we're not doing that, that's where you see the property tax go down.
Yes.
We only control village of
Right, I
Wrightstown
know
Tag.
that.
We don't control the school, we don't
Right.
control the county, or any of those other
course.
things. So what they do, we have no,
And
we have no
I
say.
understand that, totally. It's just there's a misconception, you know, because like what you said right now about the TID, I don't think, I've never seen anything on Facebook or anywhere else about that whole explanation. I think that's really important information for
Well,
us.
and every year we go through our TID reports, it's in a public hearing, we had to go
Right.
through a session, every year they're.
But how it
they're-
impacts this decision, I guess.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
really good information, thank you.
The other thing that's important about the TIDs is they have to be voted on. We couldn't just decide that we wanna do a TID and that's the end of it. We have a joint review board, so.
All taxing entities have to
All taxing
approve.
entities had to approve it. This school had to say, yes, it's fine, take the farmland and we're only gonna get $100 for the next 20 or 30 years, but we'll build your TID and we'll get the big money when it closes. The county, the tech schools, and the school, we all had to agree this was a good idea. And if we have an amendment to that TID, which we may have every year or so, we have another joint review board meeting where everybody, all those people get together and they say, yes, we agree, you can extend it for this particular business.
Well,
It's not
and-
something we do on our own.
Yeah, and we haven't extended it, and every year there's a TID report that has to be done for the DOR, but in that joint review board, every one of the taxing entities get to come and voice their opinion and see the information on basically the health of that TID, how it's doing, when it's expected to close, all those things.
Well, I think the takeaway from today, when it comes to a TID, is it's not even possible
Right.
Right.
here
Mhm. And
by,
that's really
by
important.
law.
Mhm.
So, yes, sir.
I guess I got a concern, not totally off the subject kinda, but anyways, I was just wondering on as far as a health concern from all the electricity that's used for this data center, is there any concern about stray voltage?
I've not heard that. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, the biggest struggle for this, and again, I don't know the project, but I think one reason why our area is being looked at, whether it's Greenleaf, whether it's Wrightstown, whether it's Kaukauna, there's a lot of power in the area, and you look at some of the infrastructure, the high lines that are by the property that everyone keeps posting all over Facebook, carry that stray voltage, no matter whether someone's connected to it or not.
But you reminded me of something that we haven't talked about at all today, which is, well, actually, I think this gentleman might have mentioned it, but we didn't really go into it at all, which is the noise issue. That I've seen a lot of stuff on, I'm sorry, Facebook. But, do people have concerns about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I know in Port Washington, if you look at the zoning district that the city created, it's extremely restrictive as to that kind of thing. So, but again, we get back to the question, okay, well, if they violate it, then what? You know, how do we enforce it? And so that's a question that obviously needs to be answered. But, you know, I think there's nothing illegal or wrong about having more restrictive decibel levels, you know, for industrial users in a certain zone. Okay, so that's nice, but it doesn't seem like noise is that.
Don't they also have a very large perimeter around the site itself?
Well,
dedicated to, or I thought I understood that it would be dedicated to trees and sound barriers or whatever to minimize.
Well, I think
In
with
Port
all,
Washington, the answer is yes.
Yes, that's what
Okay,
I'm
but
talking
again,
about.
that's up to the community to set those restrictions.
well,
If
and
you
that,
don't have the restrictions in your zone, in that district, then they can do whatever they're permitted to do. But like in Port Washington, I think the average setback that they put in the zoning code is like 1,000 feet. And they have to plant all these native plantings and trees and stuff.
well, and that's something that our planning commission, and everyone's welcome to come and give input on the specific topic or project that we're talking about in planning commissions, but I'll give an example. Yesterday, there was a sign that was presented, an electric messaging sign for a gas station, right? There was input on that gas station that we should protect against the amount of, or the brightness or the lumens of the sign and how fast it could flash a message, right? Like how long it had to be there, so it's not this rapid flashing type thing. In every one of our planning commission messages, and especially in some of our planned development districts, we, as a planning commission, as a board, most of the time are more restrictive on some of these buildings and what we're not, looking at neighbors and how we can move forward on those things. And we've been to that case, and I think in this case, if we were to have some sort of project like this, you can make the restrictions you want. We've had people have farther setback. We've had them have more screening. We've had them, all the above, even like their heating, air conditioning units, right? Like they can't be seen from the road. They can't be on the roadside of the building. They can't, there's different things we put in there, and truly, even though some of what they're presenting may fit within our zoning, we just say we're not approving it unless you put it in there.
Yeah.
So, and we've had, you know, I think good input from trustees that have been doing it for a long time. We've had good input from neighbors, that has been taken into consideration. Like, I believe we do a pretty good job of listening and accommodating as much as we can. Sometimes things are a little bit unrealistic, but we try.
I have a quick
Yeah.
question. We talked about noise here a second ago, and we talked about stray voltage. What about EMFs? Electromagnetic, I mean, ultrasound. I mean, we can't hear that. That
Mhm.
can't be measured.
Yeah, I've been reading a little bit about that too. They call it.
Birth defects and what have you.
Infrasound, yeah.
Absolutely.
Ultra and ultra high. and
That you don't
ultra
see
low.
or hear.
Right.
You can't
So
hear it.
I just recently, I was reading some articles about this thing that you can't hear, but it's still
Birth
there.
defects.
Yes.
Yep.
And I've also been reading there are ways to detect it, we just can't hear it.
Correct.
And so I think that's obviously, in the sound regulations, I think that's something that would also have to be addressed, like, you know.
And there's some things in the community, and again, I don't wanna just blanketed to data centers. Like, I think we can be restrictive, but in some of the noise industry, like, we have manufacturing in the village, right? There's been some neighbors, say Pro Ampac, which has been in our community since, I think, 99 or 98. There was neighbors that had concerns about noise there. We went to the company, addressed it, we ran decibel meters in their backyards, we'd set decibel meters on their decks, on their homes. So we could monitor, see what the noises were, when they were, try to figure out what some of the noises are. But when you talk about some of the things that we're talking about now, whether it's air, whether it's stray voltage, whether it's noise, we have things in our environment in the current community already that have been here for a long time that are doing some of those things. And again, not that I want to add more necessarily, but if you talk about a decibel reading and we say the data center can't go over 40 decibels, right? I could probably go over to Pro Ampac and have a decibel of 70 right now. And again, I'm just using an example, but they may have 70 right now, right? So we're gonna say, in this case, and again, not that we can't, but we're gonna say we don't ever want this because this is detrimental, but we already have it, right? They run coders in those facilities. They have stacks and they have air emissions. They have to meet all the EPA standards and everything for those air emissions, but there's air emissions. We have a power plant with a cooling tower. They fall within regulation EPA, but there's air emissions. We have a chemical plant in town right now that's been there for better part of a decade. Again, they meet EPA standards, but they have emissions.
These are things that are coming about because of data centers that we, 20 years ago didn't exist. Now, because they're building data centers, these problems are starting to show up, and we don't know what to do with them.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Did we not know about them? Did they exist or not? That's what I'm saying with some of these businesses that are out there.
Data center related.
Well, when you bring in a site as big as some of these hyperscalers, I'm sure it helps but I think, again, in some of the aspects, some of these things have been out there, right? Like, we all live in this area, the Fox River, the Green Bay, PCBs, right?
Someone had their hand.
50 years ago, no one cared about that.
Yeah, so I understand there isn't a proposal right now, but it sounds like if the data center were to come in this area, that they're looking at the property behind the school. And that's where a lot of my concern comes from. So it would be like next to our athletic fields. But then also across the street from the high school is our middle and elementary schools. So I'm very concerned about the children. I'm concerned about the air quality. Are they, like, in construction? How long, and I understand we don't know any plans yet, but reasonably, if a data center were to come, are we looking at a year, 2, maybe 3 years of construction? The air quality and the dust with the construction, will the children be able to play outside? Would it be safe for them to inhale all this as they're running? Also, my concern is the congestion with the roads. There's only so many inputs and outputs going through here to get to the schools. And during drop-off and pickup, it's already congested.
And it's certainly
not
right off the freeway either.
Well, and the children too, you have teenagers and such that are walking across the street. And believe me, I've been going through here at 3 p.m. and they're not looking for me. They're just assuming when they're going through those white lines that they're got the green light to just keep walking. They're not stopping, they're not looking left and right. They should, but they're not. So we're asking our teenagers to be responsible, going through a construction zone.
I don't think any deal where we're asking teenagers to be responsible makes sense.
Well, thank you. Because then there's also the young drivers that just received their driver's license driving to the school. I'm also concerned just with the parents picking up the kids during this time.
Yeah,
What would the plan be?
These are excellent points, okay?
I've
And this
got
is
more.
well, I'd like to hear them.
Yeah, I've got
Because we want to be prepared, so if they come and say, we want to go forward here, we've had these sessions, and maybe even more,
you know, and we can say, look, like, if you wanna be considered here, you know, we need some assurances about your tax revenue that you're gonna pay. We need sound regulations that are more restrictive than we have anywhere else. We need some assurances about utility rates that if you know, we can trace them to you going up, you're paying for them. We need water restrictions. We need some kind of plan for what you just said. And if you know, they can hit all those things, then I guess as the board is gonna say
Well,
we're not interested.
I've got concerns too, I mean, and they kind of overlap, but I want to know that the police department is able to get to that school if there is, for heaven forbid, a school shooting or something. I don't want them trying to
Yeah,
figure
be
out how to
diverted
get
around,
through
yeah.
construction.
Yeah.
How would the fire department get there? What if a child is having a seizure or something and they need medical care immediately? How quickly can they get to
Yeah,
schools when they're trying to get across the bridge or and that's another thing, what about the bridge? I mean, where would the construction be coming from? Is everybody just gonna avoid that bridge and they're all gonna come through Decatur? How does that work?
Yeah, good, great points.
Can I add to that, 1 in 12 school-age children has asthma. And all these concerns that you're collecting, these were concerns that were shared at the last meeting. And all we heard back was the financial benefits, and no to a moratorium, and no to this, and no to that. And we have people here that seem to be pro-data center. And I would strongly advise, if you are a leader, the most vulnerable people in your community is your children. And it's really sad to say that all of the data centers that are being built right now, they're, you know, like in process, ready to go, they're all within 3 miles of a school. The one in Beloit is half a mile from the school. So we are asking our children. There's one in Beloit that is just gone through. There was some secrecy with that as well, in Rock County. Yeah.
Approved?
Yeah,
I'm not aware of that.
yeah, I have a good friend.
Do you know who
lives
the
there.
developer is?
I can dig it up for you real quick.
I would love to know.
Yeah,
Because every single community that does this or doesn't do it is, yeah, we could learn from it, you know?
well, this has not been a concern because we do not have any laws in Wisconsin that regulates that zoning. But I am just saying, if you're a leader, those are your most vulnerable. So if you do bring that here, you're responsible for them,
Yes.
every single child.
We talked about, I'm sorry, we talked about noise pollution, but what about light pollution?
Oh, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, and we have pretty strict ordinances on it already, or at least from what we've been told by developers and engineers, but by all means, you can put that on too.
Well, I do know that the Port Washington zoning code, like, complies with like the dark sky group, when it comes to light pollution. And again, you can put everything in a code, which is the law. You can put things in a development agreement, which I would also suggest, so you have 2 ways of enforcement, but then you gotta enforce it. You know, in Mount Pleasant, we had some neighbors complaining about the construction lighting, and, you know, so, you know, village representatives went out there and said, why do you have these lights pointed in this direction? And they changed it, you know, but that's the closest data center of the modern data centers, I'll call them, that we have as far as completion goes. Everywhere else is either just a proposal, pre-proposal, under construction, you know, but the one in Mount Pleasant with Microsoft is the closest to being finished, you know, so, and I think those construction lights are down now, you know, so I'll have to, I don't live that far away from that one, and I'd like to see for myself what the lighting looks like down there. Yes?
Okay, so, again, you mentioned a couple times now about, you know, being able, you can put this all, you know, in a conditional use permit, you can put it in your zoning, you can put it in the contract, but enforceable.
Yes.
Okay, so I have some real concerns with that. I mean, like Microsoft, they're just gonna keep paying a fine.
Right, I have
Okay.
those concerns too.
So, and then also, an example for like Port Washington. So they, if I understand correctly, we're only supposed to do construction for X number of days from this time to this time. But then they exceeded that and they kind of
That's
blew
not
through
exactly
that.
what happened, you know.
But that's kind of what I heard, and then
I understand that's what you heard.
The
Here's
reason
what-
for that is they're behind schedule, so if they're behind schedule, the board's gonna allow it.
Well, that's the
because
key
then-
right there, right.
Then they don't wanna be behind schedule, because then your tids and tips come into play.
Well, I think behind schedule too, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22, because if this thing's under construction, everyone wants the construction to be done, right? So the faster and the more hours they can work on the construction, the sooner it'll be done. But then you have the other side of the coin where you're disrupting people. And in Port Washington, right off the bat, the Plan Commission gave them permission to do construction 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Okay, well, that was too much for some of the neighbors. They're like, this is too much. So then the Plan Commission pulled back on that. So that's what happened in Port Washington. But so again, that's up to your local, boards and commissions on, and it can be something put in a development agreement, frankly, of what are the hours of construction? What are the construction routes? Things like that.
So in our area here, we have a digester, okay? And so they have conditional use permits and such, but they're not paying the fines, and they're not being able to enforce it. We're having all these closed door sessions, we're paying attorney fees, we're doing all these things, but it's still not getting anywhere.
I mean, enforcement, I agree. Big issue that needs to be addressed on the front end, if it can.
Right.
If it can. I mean, all these conditions we're talking about, a data center might say, we can't do this. And we'll say, then my recommendation to the village would say, okay, let them
Well,
pass.
and they may say they can do it and don't do it.
Well, but that's where the enforcement comes in.
And again,
And that has to be addressed at the front end, not, okay, we put these rules in, now they're not abiding by them, what do we do? Off the top of my head, I mentioned before, something like a bond. Off the top of my head, I would say, maybe there's something in an agreement up front that says, look, if you violate this stuff, we can go right to court and get an injunction, and you have to stop operations. Which I know from my experience is like the worst thing to happen to a data center would be shut down. Part of these reasons that these have such high assessed value is because they build them, to withstand any natural disaster. Because if it goes offline, that is a disaster to their customers.
Well, and there's challenges to a lot of projects, as you talked about digester, right? The digester was supposed to eliminate a lot of manure trucks going through Wrightstown. If you've been in Wrightstown, you still see a lot of manure trucks. And now we see digester trucks. All of the landfill trucks, I shouldn't say all of them, a lot of landfill now, instead of Hobart, come through Wrightstown to go to Greenleaf. The village of Wrightstown sees absolutely no benefit in that landfill, but there's a landfill that'll be there for hundreds of years.
Not going away.
And the trucks that come through town with that all day long, there's no benefit to it either. The digester, again, I think to your point on enforcement, I think for the most part, the village and the board take enforcement as serious as we can, especially when it comes to manufacturing or development. Some may think we even do it too much when it comes to residential, as far as, some people have spoke on what they can have in their yard and what they can do in their yard, and we limit that, and, we get pretty hard into fines and hard into a lot of that. So again, even though we're a small but mighty staff, we take it to heart, and the board really says go after it. That's our code. Like, get it taken care of, enforce it.
But I agree, fines are not an enforcement mechanism against a Microsoft.
Right.
So that doesn't work.
This gentleman has had it.
You touched on something a short while ago that kind of got glossed over a little bit, obsolescence. I'm a 40-year retired IT professional, and I've seen computers go from the size of that door with the same computing power go down to a laptop today. They're building these data centers out for today's needs and tomorrow's, quote unquote. With the advent of these things, miniaturization that happens every year, major businesses swap out their servers every 3-4 years. 4 years is stretching it for a major business. I could easily see smaller data centers, because of this expense, they have to justify profitability in each of these units to maintain their operation. I could easily see 10-15 years from now, maybe this smaller unit over here doesn't necessarily maintain the same profitability that it once did because of the associated expense with replacing the hardware that's internal. I could easily see them consolidating, shutting down some of these smaller units, and then what are you gonna do with it?
Yeah, and to my point, there's two bad things for the community if that occurs. One is you got a shell of a building that's not being used, which obviously no one wants that. And two, the whole benefit, you know, the main benefit of any of this, of any big development, is the tax revenue, which also plummets because now it's just not being used and it's vacant, so.
Well, if they're building, you know, Mount Pleasant and Port Washington that are clearly huge facilities. And okay, maybe they're gonna put the small unit over here in this little town, Wrightstown, and don't worry about it, folks. We're not gonna take that much water because it's a closed loop system, and our electrical demands are not gonna be all that big because it's a small one. But again, longevity, 10-15 years, because of computer miniaturization that happens. Hell, look, you've got a computer running in your watch nowadays.
Yeah.
That's Dick Tracy stuff from my childhood. So
My only thought on that is back to that guaranteed tax revenue where they have to pay for, pick a term, you know, decades. And then, you know, it is not, many cities have ordinances and clauses in development agreements, especially for bigger developments, that if you abandon it, you have to take it down.
Yeah, but that,
Yes, we're back to enforcement again.
no, not
Oh,
only
okay.
that, but I mean, how reasonable is that? So if you're saying that you need to take down a data center that has concrete and covers the area of, you know, it's kind of like Foxconn. So Foxconn, you got so far into development, and then they walked away, and there it sits.
Time
What are
out,
you gonna do with it?
time out.
Yeah.
About to correct the record here.
Okay.
There is not one vacant Foxconn building. Drive down there for yourself, it's not hard to find. No, Microsoft built on the vacant land around it.
Yeah.
Foxconn has, how many buildings?
But was Foxconn a building like for an office building? I don't know that much
No,
about
they
it.
have like factories, you
Okay.
know?
But I mean, is it being used for another factory?
They're using it.
Okay.
Yeah. They have
But-
over 2,000 employees.
But
They're-
can a
they're
data
s-
center building be used for other purposes?
Well, good point. And my
That's
point
what I'm
is,
saying.
my point when I just threw that off the cuff about they have to take it down, I would say only if it's vacant for so many years. Like, yeah, reuse it, great, if you can.
If you
I don't
can.
know.
See,
you
that's
know.
my concern, is it's not really.
But just so we're clear.
It's not another factory that is vacant and somebody can move into that space.
Yeah.
It's not an office building that you can turn into an apartment or another business would move into that space. These are they're built
Specific.
exclusively
Right.
for a data center. You know, low ceilings, not a lot of windows, and I don't think there is that many toilets in there either because there's no employees.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, there's
Because when they keep saying, oh yeah, they're gonna pay for it, we have it built in our ordinance that they need to bring it back to its original state. You'll never get that farmland back. You'll never get it back.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you
then
could
geez,
put it
the
into an
construction,
agreement, but
can you
then it's
imagine
like,
the construction?
right.
If we had dump trucks coming in to construct, I'd love to see the dump trucks coming out with concrete.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. A lot of people bring up all that stuff and it's good answers and,
Well, I've never heard of that idea before, I just threw it out, but you're right, I don't think taking it down is really realistic.
Right, but I mean, I've seen ordinances where it says, like,
I've seen that too.
we need to, bring us back to the original state. There's no bringing back that land to farmland. You will never, ever plow for that land again. We're not in
Sir?
Quick question, and it's kind of wraps up two things for me. If we ever got to the point where the city or the village was given a proposal or, we'd like to come and build on land here in the village, would that be a decision of the board? Or would you put it to a city or a village referendum and let the people in this village that live here say yes or no?
I mean, the way the law is right now, it'd be a decision of the board. If the board wanted to change how it makes decisions.
So we're up to 7 people making the decision.
Well, it'd be
instead
up
of
to them
the
to decide.
4,000 that we have here.
But if they wanted to put it to referendum, they have that choice.
I don't think you can.
You can,
Can I ask a
mistake.
question? I don't know what we've talked about already, but has there been discussion on a moratorium? To
Yes.
give the time for the village and the community to do thorough research and to be part of the decision? Because in my opinion, this has been done behind scenes, there's been a lot of things happening that we have all just become aware of. And I can tell you right now, the majority of people in this community do not want this data center.
Yeah, we've discussed that, but this is like an open house, so people have been coming and going. But the village's position is they're not just going to do a moratorium without even having a proposal.
Why?
Because there may be a data center deal that the village supports.
We don't
We've talked-
support it. The
okay.
community does not support
I
it.
mean, we've talked here for over 2 hours about tons of restrictions that probably no data center would agree to, okay? But if they did, it's a different story. We talked about water, we talked about air emissions, we talked about energy rates, we talked about obsolescence, we talked about noise, we talked about tax guarantees, so if there was a developer that would agree to all these things, we talked about construction restrictions, I don't know that one exists, but that's why, no moratorium, because we have to, and we haven't been approached with someone saying that they want to move forward.
And every process will be fully evaluated, have full community input, more of these sessions if something does come up. So whether it's a moratorium or not, the proper time's gonna be spent on a project if something comes.
I mean,
Would you
yeah,
consider a referendum? I mean, I didn't get an
I-
answer really from it. I got
I'm not a board member, I can't speak to that, it's the board.
got board members.
I'm a board member. I think I looked up whether or not you could go to a referendum, and there are only like 3 instances where you can put a referendum out. And I
Well,
don't.
binding,
A binding referendum?
So,
advisory.
But an advisory, I mean, you can put a referendum out for it, but the state does it all the time.
I just look at the people who are asking for a moratorium and thinking.
Well, I'm not asking for a moratorium, I'm asking for a referendum.
I just wouldn't, what did you hire me for? I've been working for you for 11 years, for 11 cycles or.
Well, I don't think we've ever built a data center
No, I
potentially in this town.
understand that, but you've done other things, and I think we've been responsible.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The data center's a lot more.
That's a whole different thing than a Kim's
Permanent
hardware.
impact to our community.
Understood.
There is no reason that we should not do a moratorium and allow this to slow down and get proper research.
Do you understand that the 7 board members who sit on the board live here?
Yeah, which is very concerning that we're even having this discussion on.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is right now, I think with a moratorium, right? There isn't anything on the table, so what do we put a moratorium on?
Because why are we gathering? Yeah, there's nothing.
Why are we gathering? Because Facebook, a lot like the school, and there was listening sessions there. Facebook is going bonkers over a lot of things, but without an actual proposal, what can we investigate more than what we're already doing? So.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I keep hearing, we don't have a proposal, so there's nothing for us to talk about, we don't know anything, we don't know sizes, we don't know where, we have no idea. But once a proposal is on the table, isn't all that research already done?
And it goes
Isn't it all
quickly,
like,
yeah.
at this point,
They
it's gonna
start
be too
building.
late when we have a
Yes.
proposal?
No.
Yes, it is. That's
I don't
what
know.
happens
So
with
who
water.
keeps talking about water being?
Yeah. Water is an issue, and if you do any research.
No,
it
we've
shows
talked
that
about it
water
for
is
probably an
issue.
hour. I'd like to hear.
We talked about it, but we didn't come to a resolution. We
Well, tell me.
agreed that the direct usage with a pool loop system
Oh.
is
Yeah, I don't buy
less,
into
but
that
that
either.
it's not less than the
Baloney, yeah.
indirect.
Yeah. It's
It's
baloney
still
too, it's a lie.
millions of gallons of water.
So what,
Yep.
You
okay.
keep separating it.
No,
You
I
keep
get it,
like-
but it seems like there are other people who weren't here for the discussion.
I
Yeah.
don't, when you say we've talked about that,
Yes.
it's like we've come
Where
to
was
some
the
agreement
discussion?
that we're cool with that, but we're not cool with that.
We started this at 10 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah, we
but
were.
can't be here for 3
Yeah.
hours.
That's
We
fine,
have
we
to
have,
finish
look,
that
that's why we have a number of opportunities.
Right.
Well,
One on the side.
Yeah.
So what is your understanding of water usage for a closed loop data center? On-site water usage, what do they use water for?
You'd have to ask them. We're
For
not
cooling.
building it. But they're using a ton of water, and they're also putting sediment and things into our water system that is very harmful. Like, people in surrounding communities talk about having no pressure, brown water, trickling water. Have you talked to
For
anyone
a closed
with?
loop system?
Have you talked to
I don't
anyone
think
with
there's
the
enough
data center?
research on a closed loop system either, which
Right.
is part of the reason we want a moratorium.
Yeah.
We want to
So
slow down
this
and we want a
person right here
moratorium.
is clearly, correct me if I'm wrong, you're against the data center, right?
We all are.
Me?
Who's for the data
I'm
center?
against anything that uses massive amounts of,
And destroys
fossil
our
fuels,
community.
methane gas,
Right.
our water, all of that, yeah.
But I just
am
wanna,
against
I just
that.
want to
Anything that's gonna harm.
be aligned on what is the data center using water for on site? And we just heard a bunch of answers here.
We're
Is
not
that
building
true?
it.
To cool the servers.
What we've heard from other data center communities is that they're using millions of gallons and recycling it, and then it's turning brown in their faucets. So they're being given dirty water, emergency water, that they can't use to
Right.
drink. So they have to
Yeah.
buy their water.
Can you cite your source?
Sure.
Hold on, we have a person here who spoke on this before, I asked you to repeat it, who's actually installed closed loop systems.
Thank you. So I've installed hundreds of closed loop systems in the community around here, all the way over central Wisconsin, up towards the UP,
For
southern
a data
Wisconsin.
center?
I'm a steam fitter by trade.
For a data center though?
A closed loop system, regardless of where you put it, a hospital, school,
600 acres
office
to
building,
1,500 acres?
it don't
of a
matter.
building?
A closed loop system is a closed loop system.
It depends
Meaning
on the
that
size.
once you put the fluid into it, which is glycol and water mixture that gets trucked in, because they have to have, water that is not acidic or, too neutral, it's gotta be right in the middle, and it's mixed with a phosphorus, glycol. And, once they put that into the system, it never comes out of the system unless they're gonna do maintenance, and it would go into another tanker, or into a tote, or into a barrel, so that they can put it back into the system. They use zero water for the cooling. Their cooling system down at Beaver Dam, I don't know what the other ones are using, is cooled to 78 degrees, which is hot on a cool chilled water system. I mean, typically a chilled water system in an office building or a school or hospital is operating around 42 degrees on the cold side, and then once it goes through the coils, it comes back at about 55 degrees. And these systems here that they're using are very warm because the systems that they're trying to cool for the servers can operate between like 90 degrees and 120. The chips that they're using. Now, compared to what that was many years ago, I mean, a lot of times these server rooms had to be like 90 degrees or less, otherwise the servers would go out. But nowadays, the chips, what they're producing, allow warmer temperatures. So the chilled water systems that they're using are very, very, very safe. I mean, you take any chilled water system that we have out there in any building, which there's lots of them, thousands of them, right here in northeastern Wisconsin. They don't have leaks. If they have leaks, they're
It's not
fixing
that
them
size of
immediately.
building
that.
What's that?
There's not that size of a building. We're talking about something completely new to our system.
How big do you think that your water systems are in Nina Schools, or Lambeau Field,
The same size
or
as a 600
Aurora
to
Hospital,
1,500
St.
acre
Vincent's
building?
Hospital? It may be, we don't know what the size of it is yet.
Right, because we don't have a proposal, so why are we?
But I mean, it isn't gonna be,
Why are we here?
A listening session.
For a proposal that's not here. What does that, what's that?
So-
And if there's
so
no
why-
proposal, are you guys seeking one?
Right.
No.
And why aren't you entertaining a moratorium? You're bringing these consultants in to talk about objections, but you're
Right.
not entertaining for community members to slow it down. We don't want it here.
No, we do not want it.
No one
here.
wants it here.
Nope.
Well, I think whether you believe it or not, the water use issue is more about the power generation offsite now that the data center uses onsite.
What about the electricity being so
She
close to
tells
our
you these
students
things
and
so
our
that you
kids?
welcome it in and they give you tax relief, and it doesn't
Exactly.
happen. It does not happen. You can look at the communities that they've built in it. It's lies.
And tax relief, look at all the businesses that came into town. Did
Right.
anyone in this room's property tax go down? No. They
Because
went
it's
up dramatic.
All promises.
Yeah, we've got all these
Empty.
businesses that don't pay anything, and our taxes just keep going up.
So, where's the proposal? Let's talk about the proposal, something concrete.
Well, if Cloverleaf comes to the village and says they're serious, they wanna go forward, the purpose of these, you keep asking why we're here, is so the village can say, look, we've heard from the community, if you wanna come here, there's no TID. You're gonna have to have a guaranteed tax revenue. You can't use so much water. There has to be something to do with construction. I mean, this, I'm just going off the top of my head of what I've heard today, okay? That's the purpose of today. And is there a data center developer anywhere that'll agree to all this? I don't know. But,
Well,
Are you the attorney for the village?
yes.
So is there, how do we get a moratorium? What
The
is
village-
the process?
The village board has to do it, and.
We have to petition first and then bring it to the board? Is that the process?
What do you mean?
We have to have a petition and have people sign it, and then we have to bring it to the board?
Well, I think there's, so, A, the board could just do it, but from my understanding, I saw someone reporting on Facebook a couple weeks ago at the board meeting, and the board said they don't wanna do a moratorium. So if your question is how do you force a
Yes.
moratorium?
Yes.
There's a way to, get a petition done, but frankly,
Yeah.
by the time you would have a referendum on your petition, you know, either this developer will either be gone or have submitted a proposal, is my guess. Because that's a months-long process, you know, and then you have to wait till the
Well,
election.
well, to the tax point too, so a lot of we talked about this before some of you came in, right? So we've created TIFs. The TIFs, some of the tax increment stays within that TIF to cover projects and whatnot. But if you truly look at taxes, the reason why your taxes have gone up is because the value of your homes have gone up. The tax rate, if you look back into the budget overviews that are online, the tax rates are as low today as they were or at the same rate or lower than they were in 2012. Your taxes have gone up because values within the village have gone up, which have been driven by sales. Assessed values are based on sales of property. So as your house of your comparable size sells for more, your value goes up every time.
Right.
The state requires you to stay within over 92% of value is assessed value. We drop below, we are told we have to go up. You only have so much state requirement. Well, you can shake your head, but you can look at statute. That's why we have to.
I'm just looking at my tax.
I'd love to see the budget for the village of Wrightstown and where everything.
It's on our
So
website
much
every day,
progress.
yeah.
And I'd love, Sue, for you to be advocate on the board for a moratorium.
I am not going to advocate for
Why?
it. I am hired to do the best thing that I can for the village.
Are you
The best
listening
thing
to the
is-
people and what we're asking them? Because I voted for you.
Okay, I really appreciate that. I've been doing this for 11 years.
You're not doing what the community is asking. If you're not hiding something, and if the village isn't hiding something, we would be doing a moratorium vote.
We're
It's
not hiding
ridiculous that
anything.
you're forcing us to go through all these different, you are. Why won't you slow it down then? Why won't you put it to a vote?
Well, and
Because
attend
it's
to
a
one PM meeting, no
reasonable-
one can do
It's
that.
not reasonable. No
We have
one wants it.
4 advertised meetings.
Okay, we're aware.
One is from 4 to 7, one is on a Sunday afternoon. We're all doing the same thing. We have this many, so anyone hopefully will come.
Right,
We
and then
will probably have more in June.
when we walked in, you said, well, we talked about that already.
Yeah.
There's so much that has to be
Yeah, and
covered
we're still
that nobody
talking
can
about it.
possibly get all of
Yeah.
from stopping in for an hour at a meeting that they're at work during.
There's one on a Sunday I think one Sunday, there's a meeting, there's one from
The
4 to 7
31st.
at night, after you're done with work. I
Well,
mean, we're
this is
trying.
not a transparent process,
No.
Sue,
No,
because
it's
it's
not.
not, it's not an official meeting.
No.
I don't know what's been said if I'm not here.
Right.
That's not transparency.
Mhm.
That's secrecy. It's not recorded.
Very odd.
Yeah.
We
I
just
mean, this
moved
is
here. What?
weird.
Yeah, I know.
What
It's
is
not
going on?
official business.
And-
And you're not on the board.
No.
And it said
Yeah.
that our concerns, the village board would be hearing those, but it's through you and you were paid.
Well, there's
that's-
there was
that's
multiple board
concerning.
members here.
I'm
This is not
Where'd they
transparent.
go?
This is
They
not
came in
What were
transparent.
you expecting for transparency? We told you that we don't have any, I learned about this just like everybody else on Facebook. I didn't talk to anybody, I saw Jeremy Verhagen posted something on Facebook that said, they're putting a data center right here. I learned about it the exact same way all of you guys learned about it. Then I started doing some digging on it. Talked to Travis, talked to some of the other board members. It sounds like Cloverleaf has offered or is talking to landowners out there, okay?
You're diverting though what the fact of what I said was, that, many would probably agree this is not a transparent,
No.
city way that officially that people do things.
There's
That would
nothing
happen,
to
that would
do.
happen at an official meeting, it
And
would
it
be
will.
on the agenda, it
And it
would be
will.
recorded.
And it will.
If there's action items, we hold zoning, and like I said, we went through our comp plan, we go through our park and rec plan, we did a bike and ped plan. There's these listening sessions and open houses all the time. This is the way they operate.
This is in addition to everything.
But
Yeah.
you know the heat on this issue. And it was
That's what we're saying.
verbalized at the meeting. And so, I mean, it's.
So we have our official meetings twice a month, and we added these additional listening
I
sessions.
don't know, I mean, your
I mean, it's open to
residents are
anyone to
sharing
show
how they
up.
feel, so that's all I know.
People are
I'm
with
asking, what
cameras.
can we do to make it more transparent?
Right.
Because
You
there's
can
nothing
slow
to
it
do.
down. You can slow it down.
But
That's
what
what
we
we
slow
Go
it
ahead.
down?
You can.
You got a
bring
question
the
right
village
behind
to
you,
the
Chris,
village
too.
For a moratorium, and you can slow it down.
What are we slowing down?
You're slowing down. I heard from our attorney, if something comes to us, it's going to be fast, and the board's gonna vote on
You
it
didn't say
before
that.
yes, he did. Yes,
You
he
did.
did. You did.
I think it was
You
interpreted
for a
when you mentioned
moratorium.
it would take about a month, and that would take too long. So
Right.
you said something to that effect, a moratorium would take about a
If
month,
there's a
and by
proposal,
that time.
we're gonna keep having meetings like this, we're
No,
gonna
we're
have
not about
meetings
the
that.
meetings,
So
but I'm
let's
just
slow it
saying
down
this.
and have meetings.
We are.
But I think
As soon
that's
as
what they're
something
trying to
comes to us, we are going to, trust me, if something comes to us, we will have more meetings than you can even.
Are you on the board?
I am.
Then why don't would you entertain a vote for a moratorium to slow this process down so that
Slow
the
what
community,
process down?
to slow the data center process down?
There is no data
I'm
center.
not an idiot.
There
There
is
is a
no-
potential of a data center coming in, which is why we're all here.
Yep.
And most community members are very upset.
Yep.
So if you are listening to the community on the board, you would entertain a vote for a moratorium to slow it down and allow us all to be part of the process and be transparent.
Okay,
Period.
what part have we not been transparent
What
about?
did I ask?
I'm
I asked
You said
for
what?
us to do a moratorium to slow this process down. And Sue and you are both saying, no, you will not entertain
Right.
that.
Why are you
So
not?
why will you
Because,
not entertain
because
that?
I want somebody to come to me and tell me, this, Ryan, is exactly what we wanna do in your community. And then I can take that information.
We don't want it, Ryan.
Stop, let
We
me
don't
finish,
want it.
let me
You don't know
finish
what
the
it
conversation.
is. We
Yes,
want
we
to
do.
know if there's.
So
a
when they
data
come to,
center.
let
We
me
don't
finish,
want it.
you asked the question and I'm gonna tell you your answer, okay? They're gonna say, this is what we wanna build in your community, okay? Once we know what they want to do,
You're gonna vote on it.
stop and let me listen. You've already made up your mind, so then why don't you
Of
leave?
course I have, everyone
Because
has.
then,
That's not very
what are you doing here?
respectful. It's not very respectful.
You're not
Well, I mean-
listening to me as a taxpayer.
You're not even, you keep interrupting me
Because I am
and
not
talking
following
over my
you.
head.
All right,
talking
let's
over-
keep
So
the
This
meeting.
gentleman has his
If
hand
you
up, let's
have-
just hear what he has to
If
say.
something comes to us, we can take and look at it and say, you know what?
We are coming.
Unless you are gonna say, hey, do all of these things, we're not interested in
We
this.
don't want any.
Can we write it on a piece of paper right now and hand it to you? Moratorium for data center. Will you consider it then?
Okay, there's, as much as you guys think that there is nobody that is for this, you're wrong, okay?
You're deflecting our questions.
Well, I think you've gotten your answer on the moratorium.
Then more.
You don't like the answer, but
Yes.
you've gotten it.
We want them to come with
Right.
information.
Well,
so
but
we
at
can
the last
say,
board meeting,
this
they
is what
spoke
it
on it
is.
as well.
And they refuse.
But let's just hear, he's got his hand up.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Travis. I have two questions. First one is, were there any folks that traveled down to the facility, AI center, in the last 2 months from the village of Wrightstown?
I haven't been to the center, but I've been past. I've been to Madison quite a few times, so I've driven past both.
So no one entered the facility and asked?
Which one are you talking
Mount Pleasant.
The data center,
For Washington?
Fort Washington.
I'm there every day.
Okay, you're there every day? Okay.
I drove by there and I went
Yeah, why?
there.
What are you doing
I
if
work-
there's no proposal?
I work construction
Okay,
for a career,
okay.
so that's what I do.
So what are you constructing there?
The
A
data center?
What is your position there?
I'm a project manager for a construction company.
So there's no conflict of interest here? You're on the board?
Right.
So-
How would there be a conflict? We're
Yeah.
construction on the
I'm
other side.
asking him.
Why would there be?
I'm asking him.
My,
Well,
Okay, I have
Because he's
another
very
question.
pro.
Chris.
construction, okay, go ahead. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I gotta take the floor on this one.
Yes, yes.
The other question would be, is there an informal proposal, not a formal, informal? Is that on the table at all?
From my knowledge,
No.
Travis, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, the only contacts that there's been for local relief to the village is, we're looking, we would like to know about your zoning, we're interested in your community potentially, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
But no, informal, no. Any discussions, negotiations, not at all.
So it would be like, say, less than 6 times, you guys have spoke, less than half a dozen times, has Cloverleaf approached, just asking general questions, just like, you know, if Walmart did come and ask, what are you zoning?
Yes.
Was there any conversations other than that?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Any other, totally understand your position on moratorium, okay? Any other specific questions or other, yes?
I'm a little different subject here, but back to our emergency services. I understand that we have a new fire engine, but do we have the capacity to handle any of the emergencies that might take place during construction or related to a data center? Like what's involved if there
Good
was some
question.
kind of fire or leakage, or I don't know what could go wrong, but somebody must have looked into this, and does the town of Wrightstown, even with that brand new fire engine, have the capacity to take care of it?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is probably, well, you know, if
So-
they come and say, this is it just depends on the size and scope.
Chris, I'll take this one. So many of you have probably had me at your house or help a loved one. I've been on the department for 30 years in the village of Wrightstown. I've been on the rescue squad for 15 years, just somewhat recently got off because it just got to be too much. So I've been with a lot of, so to the fire and EMS side of the world, the village is part of a MAVIS system. So the MAVIS 112, so it's a mutual aid box alarm system. So basically everybody in Brown County is on a mutual aid agreement. We also have mutual aid agreements with Outagamie County. We're also part of the Fox River Fire District. With that, really no matter what happens within the village of Wrightstown, we have the coverage needed, right? So our volunteer fire department is well-versed in very many different techniques and has a lot of tools and has been doing a great job from water rescue to confined space rescue to hazmat calls. We had the first extrication tools in the area more than 20 years ago. Very well, but in all the different things that are happening now with the mutual aid systems that are out there, if there's something big enough, we can have fire departments coming here from all of Brown County, all of Outagamie County, and truly task force coming from other counties surrounding us from within the state. Within really one call from the chief of the police. And there's examples of it. We'll have a structure fire now. Yes, at one point 30 years ago, it was the tools that Wrightstown Fire had with them is what we had to work with. Now, you'll see a Green Bay fireman or a ladder truck, a De Pere ladder truck, a Kaukauna ladder truck, a ambulance from Green Bay, De Pere, all the above. So truly, I think no matter what's going on here, whether it's, you know, a data center, a train derailment or whatever, I feel our community is very well protected with its fire and EMS resources.
Related to a fire, those servers are gonna be very well protected. Years ago, they would use a halon system, and they would make special arrangements. Doors needed to be sealed, the drop ceilings needed to be sealed, hermetically sealed room. Nowadays, they don't use halon, but those servers are gonna be very well protected in the event of a fire. But that doesn't mean there's gonna be some other emergency that happens.
Well, I brought it up before, and I was, you know, talking more about the schools, I'm very proud of our Greenleaf Fire Department.
They're amazing,
I
yep.
think they do an awesome job, but I know that when this was being proposed for Greenleaf, they were concerned about being able to handle the situation, just with the size and such.
Well,
And then again, just with the construction, and I think people misunderstand, especially like when I talk to people in Greenleaf, they don't understand that it might have just been in Greenleaf in that case, that only, people are, Mallard and 57 and Fair Road will be affected. These dump trucks just don't fall out of the air.
Right.
They're coming from all other areas, so all of our villages and towns around us are gonna be affected, as well as our villages and towns around us that use the school system are affected. And then Travis, you mentioned a little earlier about, you're not seeing, or the village of Wrightstown is not seeing any benefit from the digester or from the landfill. But the village of Greenleaf, in the same token, will not see any benefit either. But I am 2.9 miles away from here. So I'm gonna be impacted just as much as I would be impacted when they were proposing it across the street from my home. And I won't get any benefit from it. So, no, I totally get that. I'm with you. I'm just making a point.
Right.
To his earlier comment, but,
Well,
It's an AI data center, it's collecting data on you and I, so it can store our data. Come on, are we benefiting our community? Is it helping us? Is it our future? Is it feeding our wildlife? Is it feeding the bees? What are you guys living on? You buy your water from out of the state, or where?
We buy it from Green Bay, that comes from Lake Michigan.
Right,
where all
that's
of our
for
water
now,
comes from.
as it comes clean through our taps. You talk to a lot of these communities, that no longer happens once a data center is there. Why? Why? Because they use the water and there's sediment that goes into it from their high usage.
So,
It's not a recycled.
have you talked to any of the communities that have the closed loop system?
I've
Because-
seen the information, I've
Okay.
done my research.
So, have,
Pardon?
and what did you find out?
That the water systems are no longer good, the tap water is poisoned, that it trickles out at best in a lot of the areas because of the pressure that it consumes so much water. Look at the size of the building.
Can you tell me what,
Port Washington,
what port's just being built? They're not.
Port Washington has discussed their water being,
No, I know, but I'm saying, where is there a closed loop system where these things are happening? I would like to know that.
the closed loop system where it's happening.
Yeah, where the water pressure and the brown
I'm talking about
water.
the community's response to it, that they're talking about their water supply is now dwindling and they can't use their own water.
That almost doesn't make sense though, because it's a closed loop, they built.
They tell you it's closed loop.
There's problems on some,
They
right?
also tell you it's gonna lower your taxes.
So if you do your research on all the data centers, there are challenges, right? They put in, if it's a data center, even if it is closed loop and they're doing high cap wells, right? No different than CAFO or golf courses pumping 1 million gallons a day onto their course alongside you, they can have effects on local aquifers,
Of
right?
course.
There definitely can be. The fact of the tap water being polluted now, because the aquifer changes, can that change your water quality? Yes. But the water coming out of any development, any manufacturing, data center, whatnot, can't get into necessarily the drinking water unless it's being dumped into a spot where it can trickle back down into the aquifer. So any wastewater that would come out of a facility like ours, any of the manufacturing, say Pro Ampac in Wrightstown or Print Pro or any one of them, the water goes to a treatment plant that gets treated and all the contaminants are taken care of at the wastewater treatment plant. None of it's cross-connected with drinking water. Now again, if they're dumping, which I can't believe the DNR would allow, but if they're dumping their wastewater, say just on the ground, right, or into it, could it find its way into a aquifer where people are affected on wells? Yes.
There are restrictions placed on AI data centers, they're new.
There's
So there isn't a lot of regulation.
So Port Washington, Beaver Dam all have DNR and EPA regulation.
You know, the problem too is that no one at the state will do anything regarding data centers right now. Because there's an election in November and it's a political, hot button issue. And so, it'd be helpful if the state passed some laws, but doesn't look like that's occurring or is going to occur.
Because billionaires move faster than our petitions.
I think it's because they want votes, and they think if they do anything with the data center, they're not gonna get voted for.
No?
That's one.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, because Sue's mentioned, she doesn't get any information from Facebook and such, but Travis, I'm curious, and also Ryan, were you getting any information from Cloverleaf regarding any of their systems? Have they explained anything to you or given you any kind of knowledge, background, info whatsoever? I mean, did they literally just have the secretary call the board or I can't think of the clerk possibly saying, can you give me a copy of your zoning?
I have had exactly 0 conversations with anybody related to Cloverleaf or any landowners out there.
Okay, I was
any
just
sort of
curious,
thing.
I mean, just, it was really a criticism about where we get our information. I just wanna make sure where you guys are getting yours,
Right.
because if you're getting it directly from Cloverleaf, you probably have better information than we do, so I was just asking. And just curious too, I mean, I know Ryan, you really made a point saying you didn't hear about this before last week or when it was on Facebook, but was there any meetings or face-to-face, Zoom time, emails, anything?
No.
Just they called the clerk and says, give me your zoning?
Well, what they've asked for zoning, and then that was actually through the Greenleaf process, so we've had that. I've had conversation when the whole Greenleaf discussion was going on too, on just overall educating, trying to educate myself. So I talked to the mayor in Port Washington and got his zoning and some of the stuff that they've done in Port Washington. I've talked to Beaver Dam, I've talked to,
Because you were concerned about Greenleaf?
education.
Because that was that close to
Yeah,
the village? Or you were interested
Yeah.
because if it didn't go to Greenleaf, you wanted it in the village
No.
of
Why are you
Wrightstown?
talking to all of them if there's no proposal? What is your interest in it?
Well, he was saying in January
Well,
when it came to Greenleaf.
But
For what though?
But,
Why-
but for the same aspect to I guess to your question, like you said, you educated yourself. I'm trying to do the same when there's things around us.
Okay.
This lady had a question.
The reason I'm here is because I was against the Greenleaf, okay? And a lot of the information I've learned since then, I've had to open my mind. I'm not saying I'm for this by any means. I'm just here because I have to know the real facts and I have to know the changes that go on in the technology and the requirements and the rest, okay? I think as a citizen, I need to be aware of what can come here. And this is my own personal opinion, if no one in this room was looking at this issue, I would say we're not doing our due diligence as far as what is going on in the state of Wisconsin. And if the people who work for us here in the village aren't at least finding out information, I would think they have their heads in the sand, that they're not looking out for what possibly could be coming into our village.
Well, and-
So I think the point being, do we learn about it? Do we investigate it? We should all be doing that.
Well, I'm
So,
not investigating pool systems because my neighbor's putting a pool in. I'm only doing that if it affects me.
What I'm saying-
And if there's a
can I-
direct
can I
interest
finish,
to my
please?
livelihood.
may I finish? What I'm saying is that this is coming all over in Wisconsin.
Correct.
So that's why it is pertinent. That's much more pertinent than my knowing about a pool, because this is something that could easily be in our community. So I think the point, if anybody has knowledge, well, yes, you should have knowledge. We should learn. And we should look at all the resources that are there. And I think every person in this room needs to be knowledgeable. So I wouldn't want to point fingers and say, you know more than this one or that one. We should all learn.
Well, and truly as part of my job, we do that on all, right? So splash pads have been talked about in the village, right? I call all the communities around us that have splash pads and say, how did you go about this? What's the maintenance of it? How does it work? What did you put into the uses? Whether it's for anything, whether it's a pool. We had people coming in saying that in rural St. Pat's that pools needed to have fences around them. Our ordinance didn't have that, right? So I reached out to all the communities asking, what are your ordinances on fences around in-ground pools? Or
But you
or
were
above.
reaching out about splash pads and pools because you were interested in
No,
splash
because they were brought to our attention that people either wanted them or didn't want them. So again, to educate myself on some of those processes. And truly, as we've been talking, and data center is such a hot button around the state, the administrator in Harrison actually told me that the old Kimberly Clark building is a data center right now. That's all been converted to data center. So as close as Harrison, there's a data center.
And it's not
Well, it's not
600 acres.
hyperscale.
Well, it's not 600 acres, but it's 100.
So where's the proposal that they mentioned to you or talked to you about? Where is that? Is that a vocal or written?
What's that?
The proposal that we are talking about.
We don't have a proposal.
But you said that there was something that was mentioned. It's so fuzzy, I'm just trying to get it nailed down.
There is no proposal or informal.
There is no proposal, formal or informal at this time.
But they talked about our property in Wrightstown being, what did you say?
No.
They're asking about zoning and things like that and saying they're in the area.
At the village board meeting, Bill, that was, I know, it was like, no, nothing. Nothing.
Like they didn't even ask about.
the only
something.
thing-
That's what we heard.
That was not
last week.
divulged.
The only thing that the village board heard was that people were looking for land in the Greenleaf area. When that fell apart, it just kind of stands to reason that they're going to move on to where the next available land might be. So we're looking at it and trying to get our ducks in a row in case they come here. If they don't come here, somebody said they'll probably go to Buchanan. They'll go to Buchanan, they'll just keep moving around until, so you've hired a group of people to work on your behalf. You may not like the way we're looking at this, but we're responsible for looking into things before the stuff hits the fan. That's what we're
Anything that
doing.
affects the community, though, needs to be brought to the community, not done in secrecy.
We don't have a
Like the village
proposal.
board president of Greenleaf, meeting with Cloverleaf, and never divulging it until 6 months later, saying, oh, no, nothing. It's the same thing.
But as I said before, like any developer, whether it's a Walmart or a Taco John's, is gonna have discussions with someone from the municipality. And a huge majority of those initial outreach discussions never go anywhere. And they never go to a public meeting because the developer asked whatever questions they wanted to ask, and they might have a number of irons in the fire, and that's it.
If a community member asked that, would you say that no proposal and then just like drop it like a hot potato, or would you say yes? yes, they reached out
If
and
it were
we
me,
had
I
an
would say,
informational
yeah, I would give you the
meeting,
exact
and,
answer I just
you
said.
know, we had communications and some phone calls and emails. Or would you just say, well, there's no proposal, so there's nothing to say?
Speaking just for me personally, I
Yeah,
tell you just what I
because that's what we heard,
I
you know,
understand.
and that's what we heard when we were in Greenleaf too, is that they didn't know anything about it until we were at the board meeting in January. And then we find out that they had meetings in September, but they forgot because they thought it was irrelevant when there was 100 people at a board meeting saying, and they were yelling at us saying, well, we didn't know anything about it. So I guess we're a little skeptical.
I don't blame you.
I mean, you
All
know,
I
I
can tell
don't,
you is me personally, I have never one single time
and
met
I
with
understand
anybody.
Travis isn't
talked to
part of the
anybody.
board, but are you speaking for the board? Or are you speaking like you're hired with the board, like Sue, you're hired? But I mean, are you saying that you're with the board or not the board? Or if you're not the board, you can still have conversations with them or can't have conversations? Or-
So to Chris's point, as we develop a lot of things in the village here,
But
you know,
I'm not
when,
getting a straight answer if you really had meetings with them or not, other than they asked for your zoning.
no, that's it.
That's it, okay.
And
So I didn't hire anyone on the board because I wasn't here and I just moved in. And so you say you hired me, nope, I didn't. And when I'm looking at moving into a community that wants to destroy itself, it's really disheartening. And everyone's like, well, how, why? Look at AI. Is that our future, guys? I don't know. If you think it is, we're on whole different playing fields. But it is not good for the system. It's not good for the community. It's not good for property values, and it doesn't lower taxes, period. So people thinking it's gonna lower taxes. You're in the president's promised land. Every president who's come is gonna lower taxes. When does it happen? How long have you been here? It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Over 20 years and ours only goes up. We're the highest in the community,
So,
We're looking at ways to make.
It'll go down possibly in 35 years if this AI data center is built, and
Why
it'll
would it
be
take
either
35
dead or
years?
we got it.
Why will it take 35
If
years?
anyone finds the property.
If you do research on my meadow.
No one
well,
wants, no one
what
wants
you're
that.
referring to is places that data centers have gone in and they're in a TID.
And they're what?
In a TID.
Side noises.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're saying.
So,
Kid?
yeah, so a TID is something that a lot of communities use in Wisconsin to help development, you know? But earlier we discussed Wrightstown has no ability to even use a TID if they wanted to. They're prohibited, okay, by state law. So when you have a TID, when you're talking about, oh, you don't get tax revenue for 30 years, that, well, 30's a little long, TIDs are usually 20 years. But that's, I think, the point when you see that saying, oh, you're not gonna get any tax relief for 20 years because it's in a TID. Port Washington, it's in a TID. Microsoft is in a TID, you know? And that tax revenue stays captured in there until the TID closes, and then it doesn't flow to the school district and to the city or the village, you know, in the county, so you're correct. And to this lady's point here about taxes will never go down, you know, people, proponents of data centers talk about the tax revenue, okay? And then they automatically say, well, if you get more tax revenue, that means your taxes are gonna go down. But it's not automatic, okay? Because you could have a governing body, whether it's your school board or your village board, who get all this new tax revenue for the data center. They would have a choice, keep your budget right where it is, sure, then your taxes go down. But if they decide to spend it, then your taxes won't go down, okay? So tax revenue, when you say your taxes won't go down, I don't completely disagree with you. If you would tell me they don't generate tax revenue, I would disagree with that, because they do generate tax revenue. But just because they're generating tax revenue doesn't automatically mean your taxes go down. That would be, you know, when your local school district or your county board or your village board votes on their budget, that would determine. They would have the ability to make your taxes go down. But we all know, in a lot of communities, I'm not saying Wrightstown, but there's a lot of communities around the state that I wouldn't trust to do that.
Well, and there's two, if you look on the website in our budget overview, and I talked about this earlier with some of the folks that were here, when you say taxes haven't gone down, look at the budget overview on the website. There's a lot of good information on there where taxes have gone down. If you look at a time frame between 2012 and now, the mill rate, which is what generates the taxes, have gone down. Now, your home in the last 20 years, you said you lived here for 20 years. I'm sure your taxes haven't gone down, but I'm sure your house probably appreciated. And I'll just use an example. Maybe it was a $100,000 house 20 years ago. Now it's a $350,000 house, right? In the value. And to that point, the assessments, we don't really have control over. Assessments come with, one, mandated by the state. You have to be within 72% or 92% of the assessed value or the real property value. And what drives property value is sales. So when your $100,000 house sells for $300,000 house, that increases the value that and provokes what we have to do on a state by state statute as far as assessments. So yes, your taxes probably haven't gone down in 20 years, but it's more because of the value of your home versus the rate that we're charging.
Yes, sir.
You know, I hear the residents here of Wrightstown complaining that their taxes haven't gone up, are gone down, they keep going up. But you got a town or a village board here, and you got consultants here, attorneys, an administrator that's here, that's trying to assist you with bringing more revenue into your village. And you're always opposing it, whether it's industrial or commercial, that's gonna be in your backyard. Long-term, that's gonna help you as a community to grow, bring more residents in here, but you're not opposed to more homes being built, apartments being built in your community, which increases your school taxes. It does nothing to increase your tax base to lower your residential taxes. Because you still have to pay your administrators, your attorneys, your town, or your village boards, all the people that are working in your village, you still have to pay them. So if you don't increase your tax base by industry and commercial properties, you're not doing anything for the community. If you wanna just keep bringing in more residents, your taxes will go up. And they will go up because of your school tax.
But the other
Yes,
issue that the state changed the law about 20 years ago on local governments to say you can only raise your taxes in the amount of your new value for new development for that specific year, okay? And so some communities have no development in a given year. Problem is, all your costs, you know, whether it's salaries for your staff or paying to repave the roads, I mean, we have seen an increase in costs. I mean, more than I've ever seen in my lifetime in the last 5 years. And you're not allowed to raise your tax levy to meet those costs. And this is the reason, there's two reasons why data centers are in Wisconsin looking. One is because in 2023, both parties supported and passed the sales tax exemption, okay? That opened the door. And now, the majority of other states have that too, Wisconsin does now too. And that saves probably billions of dollars for these data centers, okay? So that's number one, so that got them interested in Wisconsin. The second reason that any community is interested is to deal with the restriction that the state put on villages and cities on how to deal with their costs. Because the only way a village can meet the demand of the costs is by new development. And so you have a data center that says, I'm gonna create whatever they claim in new value. Now that just gives an ability for your local government to meet the cost of the services that people expect, okay? But those are the two reasons why they're around.
Well, and
Both of them are caused by the state, by the way.
And one thing to Sue's point before, she talked about budget for some of you that weren't here. Another thing is too, again, we're just looking at this like any other proposal that's out there. when we talk levy limits and net new construction, our board has been very great at doing what they're doing as far as bringing development into the community. And when Sue talked about budget, where normally as I present a budget, I'll present an absolutely zero increase. I'm not giving any increases to any budget line item, whether it's parks, roads, or giving raises to my staff. That here's the bottom line number. If we're not doing anything and the only objective is to lower taxes, here's the worst I can do, because I'm not getting rid of anybody, because we don't have any people. There's only 16 folks that work here in the village of Wrightstown. That's admin, full-time police department, public works, and utilities department. And I can't get rid of anybody, or we're gonna lose service. Just let me finish for a second. The next one is, I'll say, a needs budget. All our department heads put a needs budget together that is exactly what we need, right? It's, I need to replace this vehicle, we need to do this much road, we need to do whatever, and again, it's based on needs, very conservative budget. And then there's my levy limit budget, which is the top. If I go all the way up to my levy limit, this is what it's gonna be. The bottom rate might keep a mill rate at, say, $6. If I go up to my levy limit, it's $12. But I can do basically everything I wanna do, right? Every year, they take that middle ground, which is pretty close to, again, just using like a $6 number as the bottom, is that $6 number. And we've been doing it for 1,000,000 years. At least the last decade that we've been developing. The board does not want to increase it. We have financial people talking to us and say, you know, if you don't take advantage of that levy limit, you're gonna lose it. And my board members are saying, we can't give a $12 rate to our, even though we're doing well with the levy limit, we're stuck. And they're sticking with, you know, if the bottom is $6, they're sticking with a $7 rate at best. Or if for some reason we do get a lot of value where we can populate it in, they're saying drop that rate. And we've gone from a $9 mill rate to a $5 mill rate. And they're knocking it out where everyone's saying, man, Trav, you should be taking advantage of some of that and doing the things like fire and EMS costs are going up, police are going up, like staffing is going up, insurance is going up, road costs are going up. But the board, again, even beyond some of the advisory from folks are saying, we can't raise people's taxes. We gotta lower them.
And I would like to tell you what you got for that increase, that middle of the road increase that we did this past year. We got a couple of new voting machines. I don't know if those were covered by a grant or not. We got new carpeting in the police department. We wanted to do the police department and the clerk's department, but it would have cost too much money. So we dialed that back and just put new carpeting in the police department. The clerks had 10-year-old computers. I believe we got 3 new computers for the clerk's office. And that's basically what you got for the increase in the taxes that we did.
Can we
So,
look at
salary,
the center quick?
sal-
And
salary.
just, if there is a proposal, when do we find out and how?
So as soon as that were to occur,
That's what we need to know.
yeah, we would definitely, so, I mean, I think the idea here is, we have 3 more of these scheduled for now. I just, wanted to go through May and have some of these here, so that there is a proposal. First of all, we're gonna schedule more of them to talk about, okay, this is what they're saying, this is what they're proposing, and have more of these discussions, so that we can respond in some way intelligently. And so if there's a proposal, we're gonna let everyone know right away and keep doing these and have to this lady's suggestion at actual village board meetings as well. The village board meetings are very restricted, not just in Wrightstown, but everywhere, on how much you can discuss and talk about, because there's Robert's Rules of Order and all that stuff. So I would envision, we're gonna have these. The next one is, I believe, May 19th, for people who couldn't show up today, or if you wanna show up again, you're more than welcome. But if there's, if we have these kind of information sessions and listening sessions, and then a proposal comes in, then we need to have a number more to talk about what is it? Who are they? Where are they going? What are they envisioning? What do they need? What are they asking for? And is it even something to entertain? So that's what I would envision.
That's exactly why we don't wanna do like official city business.
Say that again?
With the board, like official business, where
We'd
it's
have both.
recorded and
We'd
you
have
have
both.
minutes
We'd have
and
both.
all of that.
Yeah.
That's why we don't wanna put a pause on it, because if there is something in the works, we wanna know what they want to do, so then we can start the process of saying, is this right for Wrightstown, or is this not right for Wrightstown? But right now, you know, we're saying 600 acres. They might not have 600 acres, they might have 250 acres, we have no idea. They might have 1,000 acres, we have no idea, right? So, once we get some information from them, then we can start having the conversations about, we're gonna limit your water use. Anything about power and infrastructure needs to get built back to you guys, not our ratepayers. What are you gonna do for our?
Or they may come and say, we require a TIF. Well, conversation's over.
Yeah, we're not doing that, right? There's some things
Or
we
you
know
can
we're.
say, we don't wanna have a conversation,
Yeah,
our
we could,
residents don't want it.
but the board
Yeah.
has not done that.
Could be.
To add one more thing to your question, so we have these forms here, and if you put your email on it, we plan on, any new information's going there as well. It'll go to the village website, it'll go to the village Facebook, we'll have the village board meetings, we'll have more of these sessions, but if you wanna be put on a list too, you know, you're more than welcome.
That brings up a good point. So, we had a lot of discussion here today. I mean, my goodness, I can't sit any longer, but, did everybody take notes?
I did, yes. Yeah, a lot of notes. yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I would like to, you know, see the response and then, you know, able to share those same answers, so everybody's getting the same answer.
Absolutely. yeah.
And then, I'm sorry, maybe you can just give me your card before
Yes.
we just part. But are you the village attorney, or did you come in just for this meeting?
Just for this, yeah.
Okay, so you don't actually are employed by the village for other village business? Okay.
So we advertise this till 1 o'clock, it's a little after 1. We're coming back on, I believe the 19th is the next one. And then there's a couple more in May. And again, if you wanna put your email down, go ahead. If there's anything prior to those meetings, we'll do an email blast. And we welcome all your comments. I think we got some very good ones today, so I thank every person that showed up. So, thanks.
I'm here today, but can I suggest for others who may work longer day hours, to have more informational sessions?
Well, we have one from 5 to 7, I believe, 4 to 7. We have one on a Sunday afternoon, but those are just the ones for me. You know, I wanna do